Chapter 5:11. As Mei Shuai-yen spoke to this point, she found it difficult to continue speaking. However, she still maintained a calm expression as she continued. Back then, Ma Jiangming had a wretched appearance. Moreover, he had a unique way of making a living. Every day, he would shout the words "Golden Spear will never fall." He would yell them at the top of his lungs. This was also a dishonorable thing that he had done in the past. It was to the extent that after he became famous, anyone who said those words in front of him would see it as a provocation. One wrong move and he would fight to the death. With his strength, it was only natural that the other party would die. Big sister. You. Qian Sun and Guan Qinghan blushed. They couldn't help but say in a slightly angry tone. Only Dugu Xiaoyi opened her big round eyes and asked curiously, "Golden Spear will never fall? What's that? Does it mean that his marksmanship was superb, and that he would never fall? Wasn't he a servant at that time? Did he have that kind of skill?" Mei Shuai-yen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She scratched Dugu Xiaoyi's nose and said, "God? You're such a big girl. If you put aside the original meaning of your words, it actually makes perfect sense. But, don't tell this to outsiders. It means, it's the medicine that he sold at that time. Its effect is similar to that 100 kilograms drop you used." Understood. Dugu Xiaoyi's face and ears immediately turned red. The little girl had understood the specific effect of that 100 kilograms drop afterwards. She had also roughly understood the matters between men and women. She knew that she had made a fool of herself. Fortunately, everyone here was her family. So, it wasn't a big deal. She couldn't help but look at Jun Dashao. The little girl thought that she had done it secretly. But, her little trick had already fallen into everyone's eyes. Everyone couldn't help but burst into laughter. Apart from the little girl, there was another person who was also secretly looking at Jun Moxie. It was Guan Qinghan. Eldest young lady Guan saw that the mischievous guy had a reminiscing expression on his face after he had heard those 3 words. Isn't it obvious what this guy is thinking in his heart? Even though she forced herself to calm down, she still couldn't help but feel her face heat up. Her cheeks were as red as if they were smeared with vermilion, which was exceptionally moving, until one day, Ma Jiangming coincidentally met a customer in a brothel. This customer was also an extremely wretched person. What was even more bizarre was that this strange customer actually took a liking to Ma Jiangming at first glance. He believed that Ma Jiangming's talent was extremely good, and there was even a great destiny between them. On the spot, he accepted Ma Jiangming as his disciple. After that, Ma Jiangming began to learn from his master. As expected, he didn't disappoint his master. In his era, he, Ning Wuqing, and a few other people were known as the Supremes. After their strength reached the peak, Ning Wuqing went to the Hermitage, and Ma Jiangming went to the Supreme Golden City. I hadn't expected to see him here. Mei Shuai-yen spoke slowly. There was a cautious look in her eyes as she warned everyone, this Ma Jiangming is temperamental. He doesn't play his cards according to common sense. He'll be fine one moment, and then he'll kill someone the next. There won't be any warning signs. Moreover, the people he kills often have nothing to do with him. He acts according to his own likes and dislikes. Therefore, it's best for you to stay far away from him. I may not be able to save him in time if he were to kill someone. Is this person a pervert? Jun Moxie suddenly asked. Why do you say that? Mei Shuai-yen looked at him in a strange manner. His master is a customer. Moreover, he's a very tasteless customer. He's a dignified expert of his generation. But, he actually went to a brothel to visit a prostitute. Isn't this a pervert? Jun Moxie said in a matter-of-fact manner. Ma Jiangming and his master, Wang Ba, looked at mung beans at that time. And, they hit it off very well. So, I presume that he's also talented in this aspect. That can't be taken for granted. This Ma Jiangming's reputation was indeed very bad. He had committed almost all kinds of evil deeds. In fact, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he didn't shrink from any evil deeds. But, he was the only one who didn't violate the rule of lust. Moreover, he didn't have any entanglement in love in his entire life. And, he didn't even marry a wife. Mei Xueyan shook her head. She completely refuted Jun Moxie's words. However, Jun Moxie's reminder made her sink into contemplation. What's going on here? This doesn't make sense. Could it be that a pervert has taken a Taoist teacher as his disciple? What kind of logic is this? There must be some other reason. Jun Moxie pondered for a moment. Then, he suddenly smiled in a strange manner. His smile was extremely vulgar. It seemed as if he was extremely happy. What are you smiling about? Could it be that you've thought of something? Mei Xueyan asked in a strange manner. The other women also looked at Jun Moxie at the same time. I'm just thinking. Do you think that his master might have cultivated a strange and unique Xian technique? But, he wasn't able to cultivate it successfully for some reason. So, he decided to go the opposite way. So, he took Ma Jiangming as his disciple. Maybe he made him cultivate the opposite way. Jun Moxie chuckled mischievously, or perhaps this Ma Jiangming has some kind of special innate trait. This trait might be meaningless to others. In fact, it might even be considered a flaw. But, this trait just so happens to meet the requirements of this unique Xian technique. So, his master took it as a rare commodity. Otherwise, why would he behave in such a strange manner? At this moment, Jun Moxie had inexplicably thought of the most famous martial arts manual in his previous life, the Sunflower Treasured Manual. Therefore, he had suddenly said these words. In fact, even Jun Dashao himself didn't know that this sudden thought of his had hit the nail on the head. However, if this is really the case, then I'll have to be extra careful if I have to face Ma Jiangming one day. Jun Moxie secretly calculated in his heart. How could there be such a technique? Even if there really is such a technique, how could Ma Jiangming have learned it so coincidentally? I think this is just your own imagination. Why are you thinking of such strange things? Guan Qinghan, Dugu Xiaoyi, and the Qian Sun Serpent Queen angrily rebuked him with red faces. Mei Xueyan didn't nag at Jun Dashao like the other three women. Instead, she frowned slightly as if she was pondering something. Ma Jiangming had already walked into the hall. He suddenly let out a strange laugh and said, Ning Wuqing, you've also come. We haven't seen each other for a long time. A lengling smile appeared on Ning Wuqing's thin face. He faintly said, I was wondering who had come from the Supreme Golden City. So, it's you, old monster. An old man who doesn't die is called a thief. Ning Wuqing still has the nerve to call me an old monster. You're also not much younger than me. We're both the same. Ma Jiangming said in a sharp voice. His voice sounded like he was joking, but his tone was still very sinister. It was enough to cause people to tremble with fear. Old monster, you rarely speak good words. However, your words today aren't bad. I'm indeed much older than you. Ning Wuqing flicked his sleeve and slowly sat down. Oh. Do you mean, that you can live longer than me? Ma Jiangming let out a strange laugh. His voice instantly became abnormally low. Good. Then let us two old bachelors endure each other for a while. Let's see who can live longer. Endure your dead man's head. Ma Jiangming, do you want to fight with me? Ning Wuqing's countenance was grave and stern as he shouted in a harsh tone. Ma Jiangming's old bachelor was extremely unbearable to Ning Wuqing. It seemed as if it had touched upon a painful past that he couldn't bear to think about. Even with his 100 years of cultivation, his voice and countenance had become extremely stern. His entire body was like a divine sword that had been unsheathed. Although Ning Wuqing remained motionless, the hall was suddenly overflowing with sword qi. It seemed as if the air in the hall had been sliced into pieces. The entire hall was in a state of panic. It seemed as if the wind was blowing and the cranes were in a state of panic. Why can't I fight with you? However, this place isn't necessarily a good place for us to fight. Ma Jiangming snorted and said, Ning Wuqing, we are destined to have a battle. I can say with certainty. Ha ha ha, Ma Jiangming, you really know how to boast shamelessly. 136 years ago, you were lucky enough to escape from my sword. You might not be as lucky as you were back then, right? Ning Wuqing laughed and said disdainfully. As the saying goes, a scholar who has been away for 3 days has to be looked at in a new light. Even 30 years have passed, let alone 136 years. Ning Wuqing, those who think too highly of themselves often have extreme joy turn to sorrow. Ma Jiangming said in a shrill voice, don't lose the prestige you've built up over 200 years under my hands. I'll wait and see. I'm really looking forward to the day when I'll be able to kill you with my own hands. Ning Wuqing snorted. It seemed that these two hadn't been on good terms with each other in the past. In fact, they had even fought to the death before. However, it seemed that Ma Jiangming had lost. Upstairs, Mei Shuyan and Jun Moxie looked at each other. They could read each other's thoughts. Mei Shuyan's eyes were filled with worry. However, Jun Moxie's eyes were filled with a battle-hungry look. Mei Shuyan was worried because the war for seizing the heavens was imminent. But, the 3 holy lands were still fighting each other. And, internal strife was the most exhausting. So, the current situation was extremely bad. However, Jun Dashao was extremely excited about this. Huang Taiyang's Xian cultivation was profound, and his strength was extremely strong. In fact, he was the strongest person apart from Mei Shuyan among all the people that Jun Dashao knew. However, he was too arrogant and conceited. Moreover, his arrogance was tinged with the aura of a hoodlum. On the other hand, Ning Wuqing and Ma Jiangming had the demeanor of peak experts in their bones. Moreover, the sword qi on Ning Wuqing's body was able to make Jun Moxie feel a sense of awe. It seemed to have something in common with the swordsmanship of his previous life. From the perspective of his previous life, these two people were obviously experts at the peak of the Xiantian realm. I must fight with them. Jun Moxie lowered his eyebrows and closed his eyes. However, his heart was overflowing with fighting spirit. It will be very beneficial if I can fight with them. Today's main characters weren't these two bosses. So, Ning Wuqing and Ma Jiangming didn't continue to get entangled with each other. So, they each found a place to sit down. The two of them had just sat down when the third wave of high-level people arrived. They were led by a middle-aged man who seemed to be in his 40s. He wore a purple robe with golden embroidery. He had an imposing appearance. In fact, he could have been regarded as a talented person if not for his gloomy complexion. This person was the illusory ocean of blood's young lord, Huyan Shao. Several great master-level experts were standing behind him. Huang Taiyang hadn't returned. So, there were only 5 people left, including Huyan Shao. Chapter 5:12. Afterwards, it was the turn of the various aristocratic families of the continent to enter. These usually arrogant descendants of aristocratic families were all very careful today. Among these hundreds of aristocratic families, there was one thing that was exactly the same. The leaders of these families were all white-haired and senile. One look and you could tell that they were the old antiques of each aristocratic family. Such antiques naturally had profound mysterious skills, and the second characteristic was the most important: they were very knowledgeable. Admittedly, this auction was extremely important, and it was very likely that it would affect and even change the future of Jianghu. But if they offended some people that they shouldn't offend, the consequences would be extremely serious. Therefore, it was necessary to have these old and prudent people to preside over this auction. For example, if it was the young people who entered at the beginning, they might have already rushed in. But with these people in charge, they would never do something that was strenuous and unrewarding, and would offend people for no reason. The 3 Holy Lands were waiting there, and you, a secular family, went in first. Wasn't that courting death? After these people entered, they first went to the seats of the 3 Holy Lands to greet them, and then returned to their respective seats. It was orderly, and there was not the slightest bit of chaos, as if it had been arranged beforehand. Just this etiquette alone took up almost half of the morning's time. This made June Moxie, who was upstairs, yawn again and again. He felt very bored, and felt that if he had the time, he might as well refine some medicinal pills. When the auction time came, the doors slowly closed, and the hall was suddenly plunged into darkness. In such a large hall, all the windows were closed. Everyone here was a top-notch expert, so they weren't afraid of any accidents. However, they were still a little bewildered. Suddenly, a ball of fire lit up high in the sky in the middle of the hall. Under the illumination of the fire, countless sparkling lights flashed in the countless corners of the hall. Then, they converged into a ball and actually illuminated the entire hall. June Moxie had cleverly used the principle of optical refraction. Using only a ball of fire and countless gems, he had successfully created a dreamy and magical environment. Although the entire hall was extremely bright, there was not the slightest bit of smoke or fire. Everyone present was experienced and knowledgeable. But, they had never seen such a marvelous sight. Therefore, they clicked their tongues in amazement. This scene alone made them feel that this trip had not been made in vain. This aristocratic hall is truly a miraculous place. Its reputation is well deserved. On the auction stage, there was a sudden dong sound. A young man in white with a faint smile on his face suddenly appeared on the stage with a small hammer in his hand. Just now, when the hammer fell, it had attracted everyone's attention to the stage. Seniors and heroes, since we're all here today, we naturally have the same goal. So, I won't say any superfluous words here. Let's not waste everyone's precious time. This youngster's body won't be able to withstand the anger of the seniors, ha ha. June Moxie looked at the crowd of experts below the stage, and made a small joke in a relaxed manner. He had wanted to liven up the atmosphere a little. But, he hadn't expected that no one would respond to him. The entire hall had become frighteningly silent. He believed that anyone would be able to identify the source of the cough if someone were to cough at this moment. However, Jun Dashao wasn't able to adapt to this situation. They're leaving this young master hanging on the stage. Could it be that this group of people below were all statues? However, I reckon that the weakest among them is at least at the level of Tian Xian. Shen Xian's level of cultivation can be found everywhere. But, they're almost there. 2,000 or 3,000 people had gathered together. June Moxie was extremely daring. But, he didn't dare to rashly provoke the anger of these people. He coughed twice. Jun Dashao secretly cursed in his heart, each and every one of you are so untactful. This young master will make you bleed in vain if I don't make you bleed. So what if you're experts? I'm going to slaughter you experts. I'm going to slaughter you until your noses are crooked. Otherwise, I won't be called the evil monarch. I hereby announce that the special auction of the bone-tempering pills has officially begun. June Moxie was still smiling wholeheartedly. He then said in a clear and resonant voice, the bone-tempering pill is a rare elixir. It was discovered by accident. But, its effects are even more effective than the legends. There's a saying that goes, all talk and no action. So, it doesn't necessarily mean that this thing has an extraordinary effect. I'll take out 3 pills in order to reassure everyone. And, I'll ask the experts of the 3 Holy Lands to try them first. Then, we'll see whether their effects are as impressive as the sellers have said. Do you believe the results of the experiments of the experts of the 3 Holy Lands? June Moxie's words were quite insidious. He wasn't angry that the people hadn't responded. So, he had used this method. Well, if you don't say anything, it means that you don't believe in the 3 Holy Lands. Who can bear the consequences of this? Sure enough, the crowd became excited as soon as June Moxie's voice faded. The clamorous waves of energy nearly broke through the roof of the hall. We believe. What's there to not believe? The three holy lands have always been the targets of our admiration. Ha! The experts of the three holy lands have personally tested it. How can we not believe it? It's a golden signboard. That's right. June Moxie was happy in his heart. Weren't you guys keeping silent? Damn. If this young master didn't let you open your mouths and roar a few times, how could I vent my anger just now? But his expression didn't change in the slightest. Three white-clothed youngsters walked onto the stage. Each of them used a small jade plate to prop up a bone-tempering pill. Then, they respectfully placed it on the table of the three holy lands. Ning Wuqing's gaze was deep as he looked at June Moxie on the stage. June Moxie remained calm and collected. He only nodded with a faint smile. Ning Wuqing calmly pondered for a moment. Then, he used his hand to pick up the small yellow pill. It was shrouded in a halo. He couldn't believe that such a small pill could actually change the original structure of a human's bones. He pondered for a moment. Then, he raised his hand, and put it into his mouth. He didn't need to fear any kind of poison when his Xian skill had reached this level. No matter what kind of poison it was, he could expel it as soon as he discovered an anomaly. Therefore, he wasn't afraid of June Moxie's mischief. I believe that no one in this world has the qualifications to cause mischief in the face of the three holy lands. Ma Jiangming and Huyan Shao also had the same idea. But, they hesitated for a moment, and then swallowed it down. Then, the complexions of these three people changed. They were experts who had lived for countless years. And, they had experienced many incidents. So, how could they be shaken by such an unforeseen event? Their expressions wouldn't change even if empty Tai were to collapse in front of them. The pill had just entered their mouths when it had completely melted in their mouths. Only their mouths were filled with fragrance. The huge power produced by the pill's melting was like a flood. It submerged into the meridians of their bodies in a split second. Then, the joints of their bodies suddenly felt numb and itchy. It was accompanied by a subtle pain that arose from the depths of their hearts. In fact, it seemed as if their souls were convulsing at this moment. The three people endured it. They looked at each other with cold eyes. Their faces didn't change. No one wanted to lose face in front of the world's heroes. Their Xian skills were profound. Moreover, their physiques were far superior to those of ordinary people. Therefore, the feeling wasn't particularly intense. They would have cried out in pain if they had been in their place at this moment. This pain was no different from being reborn. Ning Wuqing and Ma Jiangming were able to stand steadily under the watchful eyes of everyone. Their expressions were also motionless. In fact, even the expression in their eyes hadn't fluctuated in the slightest. However, beads of sweat had already appeared on the face of Huyan Shao. He couldn't suppress the pain in his eyes, and his brows were slightly wrinkled. A long while passed. Suddenly, a burst of crackling sounds came from the bodies of these three people. It seemed as if every joint in their bodies was about to explode. Almost everyone could imagine that these three people were enduring an enormous pain at this moment. Ning Wuqing and Ma Jiangming forcibly suppressed the tempting thought of using their martial power to resist at this moment. Then, they attentively looked inside their bodies, and were pleasantly surprised to discover that the joints of their bones had undergone some subtle changes. They had been cultivating non-stop for the past few years, and had been fighting non-stop. So, their bones had long been set in shape. Moreover, they had also aged a little. However, almost all the scars on their joints had disappeared at this moment. Moreover, their muscles and bones had also been pulled, and had spontaneously adjusted to the most ideal position. Both of them felt as if they had been given a new lease of life. The pain they had felt a moment ago was indeed unbearable. But, this pain was worth it. In fact, both of them believed that it would be worth it even if they had to endure this pain for 100 times in order to achieve this result. They didn't hesitate to make their choice. The formidable effects of the bone-tempering pills continued to operate in their bodies. However, they didn't doubt the miraculous effects of the bone-tempering pills anymore. They looked at June Moxie on the stage. And, their eyes exposed a look of determination. In fact, their eyes even contained a trace of heartfelt gratitude. After all, these bone-tempering pills would have been given to the talented experts of the younger generation if June Moxie hadn't personally experimented with them. And, they would have nurtured their strength in the future. Firstly, these two people disdained to fight for them. Secondly, they were too old. So, they wouldn't have gotten the chance to fight for them even if they wanted to. However, they hadn't expected that they would have taken one of the bone-tempering pills the first time they had seen them. Both of them were super experts. So, how could they not know that such a small adjustment in the joints would have a great impact on their strength? The situation would have been completely different from before they had taken the bone-tempering pills. Their agility, speed, and power would have been enhanced again. Moreover, the extent of the enhancement would have been astonishing. However, Hu Yanshao didn't have such thoughts. He was relatively weak. He had realized that the bone-tempering pill was indeed a good thing. However, the process of its efficacy taking effect was too painful. He had exerted his entire body's strength to resist the pain. However, he was barely able to prevent himself from making a fool of himself in front of everyone. However, his clothes were already soaked in sweat. Everyone present had discerning eyes. So, how could they not see his embarrassment? The experiment had more or less come to an end. The corners of Ning Wuqing's mouth exposed a trace of satisfaction as he felt his brand new body. He took a step forward, and looked at June Moxie. He then said in a dignified manner, "Thank you very much." June Moxie faintly smiled and replied, "You're welcome." Ning Wuqing chuckled. Then, he turned around, and faced the crowd. He then slowly said, "I'm Ning Wuqing. I can confirm that the bone-tempering pills are effective. Moreover, the effects are unexpectedly good. It's worthy of being called a miraculous medicine. Such a miraculous medicine can seize the good fortune of the world." Chapter 5:13. Ma Jiangming and Hu Yanshao also said the same words at the same time. They had acknowledged the efficacy of the bone-tempering pills. The eyes of everyone in the hall brightened up for a moment. Then, everyone started to whisper to each other. It wouldn't be a big deal if one or two people were whispering to each other. But, thousands of people were whispering to each other at the same time. It was as if a heavy rain was falling. In fact, it was as if thousands of snakes were crawling through the grass at the same time. Qian Sun Serpent Queen was upstairs. She even stretched her head out to take a look. "Don't tell me that my kind is having a meeting downstairs." The hall had sunk into a state of chaos. The people of the three holy lands have acknowledged this pill. In an instant, the importance of this elixir rose by several levels in everyone's hearts. The transformation from determined to get it to determined to get it at all costs had taken place in an instant. Silence. Everyone, please be quiet. June Moxie imitated the appearance of a judge on TV. He had a serious look on his face as he pounded the hammer. However, he was feeling very happy in his heart. Meanwhile, Mei Shuiyan and Qian Sun Serpent Queen were upstairs. Their attention was focused on the people of the three holy lands. Guan Qinghan and Duga Xiaoyi each had a piece of white paper in front of them. They were ready to write something down. June Moxie had held this auction for two reasons. Firstly, he had wanted to amass a large amount of gold. He had wanted to provide a large amount of materials for his power of gold. He had wanted to prepare a divine weapon for each of his exclusive troops in the future. Secondly, his purpose was very simple. He wanted to amass wealth. He wanted to prepare for June Moxie's palace and base in the Tian Fa forest in the future. These things could only be a pipe dream if he didn't have a frightening amount of wealth. But at this moment, his goal was obviously not limited to just these two. This auction of the bone-tempering pills was related to the future of the aristocratic families. Therefore, it was easy to tell which family had enmity with which family had a good relationship with which family could be used, and which family had to be left out of contact. This was undoubtedly a very valuable piece of information. There was another important point, Mei Xuyan's goal. Beauty Mei needed to confirm the relationship between the three holy lands. Throughout history, these three families had never shown themselves, and no one knew what the relationship between these three families was like. No one knew where they were located, and whether there had been any changes. Could they still be like before, fighting openly and covertly, but when faced with a foreign enemy, could they still unite as one again? This concerned the future of the entire continent. This plan could not be taken lightly. Therefore, Jun Moxie was really looking forward to this auction. The bone-tempering pill was obviously a top-notch elixir in the eyes of these people. It was a good thing that they wanted to get their hands on even if they had to spend a lot of money. However, the bone-tempering pill couldn't be said to be a common good in Jun Moxie's eyes. But, it wasn't necessarily that rare either. Perhaps, Jun Dashao wouldn't have refined this thing in large quantities if it weren't for the fact that it could be exchanged for funds. Therefore, the entire hall consisted of almost half of the elites of the continent. These people would never have thought that they would come from thousands of miles away. They would spend almost all of their family's assets to buy this thing. In fact, they wouldn't even hesitate to fight openly and covertly for it. In fact, they would go bankrupt because of it. In fact, these things weren't even worth mentioning in the eyes of others. This was a huge irony. Therefore, Jun Moxie hadn't announced any specific rules of the auction due to the above goals. For example, he hadn't mentioned that they couldn't engage in vicious competition, deliberately raise the price, or use private means to threaten others. Now that the seller has proven the efficacy of this elixir, let the auction begin. Jun Moxie pounded on the table with his hammer. The entire hall became deathly silent after he had pounded the table. The seller has provided a total of 50 bone-tempering pills. There are 20 pills in each portion. In other words, it doesn't matter which family it is, as long as they can obtain one portion of the bone-tempering pills. Then, they will be able to nurture 20 powerhouses with boundless future prospects for their own family. And, they will be able to ensure that they will be able to walk faster and further on the path of Xian Qi cultivation in the future. Moreover, their achievements will be greater as well. For example, a genius will appear in a family. And, this genius will need at least 60 years to climb up to the level of Xin Xian's achievements from his birth. But, he will consume the bone-tempering pills in his childhood. And, that time will be compressed to 40 years, or even shorter. So, there will be a gap of at least 20 years between him and someone who hasn't consumed the bone-tempering pills. So, everyone should understand what this gap represents. Jun Moxie's extremely bewitching words made the already oppressive atmosphere in the hall even more solemn. Everyone had a heavy expression on their faces. They were pondering over the true meaning behind Jun Moxie's words. What does a gap of 20 years represent? It means that you might still be struggling at the level of Yu Xian while others are at the level of Tian Xian. Everyone shuddered with fear as they thought of this. Doesn't this mean that the families who have obtained the bone-tempering pills will be able to exterminate the families who haven't obtained the bone-tempering pills in the near future? It will be effortless for them to do so. Creating 20 experts in one fell swoop. Almost everyone's eyes had turned red, except for the people of the three holy lands. There are only 50 portions in total. So, it can be foreseen that the people of the three holy lands will take at least one portion, or even more. However, there are still 600 families left. There are only 600 families left. More than 600 families are competing for a mere 40 portions. This is a cruel ratio. Third young Master June, there are only 50 portions of the bone-tempering pills in this auction. Isn't this too little? Someone raised an objection. The one who stood up first was a white-haired old man with an extraordinary bearing. He stood up from his seat in the middle and said, "There are over 600 of us now, but you're only taking out 50 medicinal pills to auction. This is a little too unfair for most of the aristocratic families." As soon as he opened his mouth to speak, everyone immediately responded one after another. It was as if they were going to gang up on him. After all, who wouldn't want a heaven-defying treasure like the bone-tempering pill? Who wouldn't want their own clan to stand proudly at the peak of the continent and be looked up to by everyone in the world? He commanded the Jianghu, and no one disobeyed him. He ruled over the world, and no one dared to challenge him. Silence. June Moxie knocked on the table. "Old man, may I know your name?" The old man who had been the first to stand up and question him was startled for a moment. This old man is Zhao Ban Feng from Feng City's Zhao family. This old man had doubted you a moment ago. Admittedly, it was out of selfishness. But it was also for the sake of the public. In any case, I didn't mean to disrespect the aristocratic hall or the June family. In fact, I didn't even have the slightest bit of malice towards them. Zhao Ban Feng's words were neither servile nor overbearing. In fact, they were very appropriate. In fact, he had made his position clear. In fact, this old man had broken into a cold sweat as soon as he had spoken. After all, the June family and the aristocratic hall weren't existences that ordinary families could afford to provoke. So, he had taken the initiative to stand up for them. But, it would be better if he didn't incur any enmity with the aristocratic hall. In fact, it was highly likely that June Dashao would have flared up if June Moxie had gotten angry for a moment. And, he would have expelled him for disturbing the order of the meeting. Moreover, nobody would have interceded on his behalf. After all, one less family meant one less competitor. If that were to happen, he would have completely lost everything. June Dashao smiled faintly. "Old man Zhao, you don't need to worry. The aristocratic hall is a reasonable place. So, we won't offend our guests for no reason. But, old man, you've mentioned the problem of the Buddhist monks. And you've provoked many different opinions. So, I have another question to ask old man. And, I hope that old man can answer it." "I wouldn't dare." "Please enlighten me, Lord Jun Sun Shao," Zhao Banfeng replied. "May I ask old man if you've ever taken a miraculous medicine like the bone-tempering pill before today?" June Moxie asked. How could this old man have had the great opportunity to take a miraculous medicine like this? In fact, I've never even heard of it. This is a legendary miraculous medicine. And, this old man would have had some doubts if it hadn't been verified by the seniors of the 3 holy lands, Zhao Banfeng replied. Then, old man, have you ever heard of anyone who could refine such a medicine? June Moxie asked. I've never heard of such a miraculous medicine. How can it be seen so often? Zhao Banfeng replied again. That's right. Such a miraculous medicine is rarely sought after in this world. So, wouldn't it become a common commodity if everyone could get their hands on it? And, that would be a big joke. Jun Dashao chuckled and said. Then, he raised his finger, everyone, please pay attention. Our aristocratic hall is an auction house. It's not a place to buy and sell things. Most of the precious items are only available at one time. But, there are still hundreds of people competing over them. What's wrong with that? Is it really surprising? The highest bidder wins. This is the rule of the auction house. You can only look on helplessly as someone else buys it if you don't have enough money. This is because you don't have enough strength. So, what's there to complain about? It's only natural that your family will be exterminated by someone else in the future. Is there a need to argue about this? There was no movement from the audience. That's right. This is the rule of the auction house. How can you buy something good if you don't have money? let's not talk about anything else. Our aristocratic hall will use this as a gimmick to hold a grand auction. And, I believe that it will bring even greater benefits. Our aristocratic hall is kind and honest. So, we've opened this exclusive auction house. Moreover, we've done our best to distribute the pills. We've taken everyone's purchasing power into consideration. So, we've divided it into 50 portions. June Moxie's eyes narrowed. I'll simply hold a one-off auction if everyone isn't satisfied. There's only one portion. And, the highest bidder wins. Those who have the strength will certainly agree. So, does everyone agree? June Moxie's words could be said to have scratched an itch. Who among the thousands of people present would admit that they didn't have the strength? Suddenly, everyone opened their mouths, and started to speak. That's right. This is an auction house. It's not a charity house. How can everyone have a portion of such a divine item? What kind of logic is this? That's right. Old Zhao, don't say anything if your family can't afford it. Someone else will buy it. You don't need to worry about it. Haha, that's right. You don't have gold. So, what's the point of holding a maggot like a big tail? I'm not afraid of a big one. The bigger the better. Chapter 5:14. There was a hubbub of voices. Elder Zhao Banfeng's lips trembled for a while as he looked angrily at the crowd. He suddenly realized that a few of them were the ones who had been inciting him to speak. Weren't they fucking putting him on a rack to roast? And, they are old friends of mine for so many years. He couldn't help but get angry. His lips trembled as he said, You guys. Good. The Zhao clan isn't considered a big clan, but we can still afford the price of a single pill. Let's wait and see. Those people who had ridiculed him at the beginning were obviously enemies of the Zhao clan. Perhaps, they had a grudge against the Zhao clan. But, everyone could see this point clearly. Upstairs, Mei Shuyan lightly swept a glance downstairs. Then, she insipidly said, Record the first file. The Zhao clan has an old grudge against the Ma clan, the Jiang clan, and the Wu clan. Moreover, the Sun clan, the Qian clan, and the other clans also seem to be on good terms with each other, but are at odds with each other in reality. So, it's easy to sow discord. Sort out the information after you go back, and eliminate these clans. If something happens in the future, they will either help or sow discord. File them separately. Guan Qinghan's pen moved as if it was flying. She clearly and accurately recorded the first information of this auction. June Moxie calmly sat on the auction stage as he observed the reactions of the clans with cold eyes. He believed that his previous words had thoroughly aroused the enthusiasm of this auction. Only by successfully creating a lively atmosphere of, no choice but to bid, can this young master fish up a lot of money. The importance of the pills has been elevated to the life and death of each clan. This is the evil monarch's way of doing things. Of course, not everyone will believe him. But, it doesn't matter. It's enough as long as there's a trace of doubt. This young master doesn't want you all to believe him. One must know that one mustn't have the intention to harm others, but one mustn't have the heart to guard against others. These clans will fight for a bone-tempering pill even if it's to protect themselves. Who can guarantee that their descendants won't have any enemies when they travel the Jianghu? Isn't that nonsense? Therefore, June Moxie struck while the iron was hot, and threw out a bone. The first round of the auction will begin. The first bone-tempering pill, 20 pills. The starting price is 100,000 gold taels. June Moxie shouted, Seniors, please start the bidding. The highest bidder wins. It's fair and just, fair and honest. Good quality and low price. Everyone, it's better to be on time than to be on time, and it's better to be on time than to be on time. Let's see who gets the first shot today. June Dashao's words were basically the words of a flyover juggler. Suddenly, the whole place fell silent. Everyone's eyes were on the first row. The attitude of the three holy lands. What he meant was, hurry up and settle your stuff so that we can go all out and bid. Ning Wuqing smiled and was about to say something, but he heard a gloomy voice, Great Golden City bids 100,000 gold. Does anyone dare to snatch it? Jun Moxie was so angry that his nose almost became crooked. Bah, what kind of bullsh*t is this? Wasn't this daylight robbery? The starting price was 100,000 taels of silver. Not only did you bid 100,000 taels of silver, you even added a, does anyone dare to fight for it? As a person, you couldn't be so shameless. And, I even gave you one for free just now. Most of the people in the hall also had an unhappy look on their faces. But, no one made a sound. Jun Moxie was speechless for a while. Then, he helplessly asked, Great Golden City bids 100,000 gold. Does anyone want to increase the price? Does anyone want to increase the price? 100,000 gold going once, 100,000 gold going twice, if no one wants to increase the price, 100,000 gold going thrice, deal. Wait. Ning Wuqing's complexion sank. He raised his eyes and said in a heavy tone, Hermitage bids 100,001 taels. Only one tael was added. This was undoubtedly a resounding slap in the face of the Great Golden City. Especially when Ma Jiangming had said, does anyone dare to fight for it, in a disdainful tone. It would have been fine if the bidding had started immediately after this sentence. In fact, it would have looked like they were evenly matched. However, Ning Wuqing had intercepted the deal at the last moment. What did this mean? Moreover, he had only increased the price by one tael. It would have looked like a fair competition if he had increased the price by a lot. But, he had only increased the price by one tael. This was clearly a humiliation. The entire hall was in an uproar. They hadn't expected that such a subtle and unexpected situation would occur in the first round. Upstairs, Mei Xuan sighed softly. Her expression became even more anxious as she said, record the conflict between Hermitage and the Great Golden City. It has already reached the point where they are as incompatible as fire and water. So, we must choose carefully when dealing with these two forces. No one is allowed to act blindly without thinking if there's any movement. Dugu Xiaoyi complied. Then, her pen moved like a dragon and a snake, and she quickly recorded the information. The person who recorded this confidential information and then organized it was Jun Moxie's most trusted person. He obviously trusted Jun Zhantian and Jun Wui. However, it wasn't appropriate for them to show their faces in this situation. With the strength of the people in the lobby, they could easily distinguish whether the person upstairs was a man or a woman even if Dugu Xiaoyi and the others were hiding upstairs. Perhaps, only Mei Xuan hadn't been discovered by the people present. Even the aura of the Qian Sun Serpent Queen was being monitored by Ning Wuqing and Ma Jiangming. Ma Jiangming's complexion changed. He snorted and said, Old Ning, do you really want to play like this? Ning Wuqing laughed. Then, he said in a cold and solemn manner, this old man just doesn't like it. The starting price has already been set at 100,000 taels of gold. But, you're still suppressing the price. And, you're still threatening them. Who would dare to open their doors and do business if everyone behaved like you? Ma Jiangming, you were the one in the wrong first. You have the nerve to call yourself a senior expert from the three holy lands. You may be shameless, but this old man can't afford to lose face like this. Ma Jiangming snorted in a gloomy manner and said, in that case, the Great Golden City bids 300,000 taels of gold. Ning Wuqing, do you still want to compete? Ning Wuqing's complexion changed. He said, Ma Jiangming, are you trying to provoke me? Ma Jiangming didn't reply. Instead, he looked at Chu Yang's complexion. Ning Wuqing smiled Lenglang and said, since you've taken the initiative to increase the price, this price of 300,000 taels of gold can be considered passable. This old man naturally doesn't feel like making things difficult for you. The first batch of pills had finally been successfully auctioned. And, the starting price had been raised to 300,000 taels of gold under Ning Wuqing's provocation. The first batch of pills could be considered as a good start. It was tantamount to raising the starting price of the pills to 300,000 taels. Even the Great Golden City, one of the 3 holy lands, had bid 300,000 taels of gold. So, wouldn't the other clans look down on the Great Golden City if they were to purchase the pills at a lower price? Therefore, almost everyone sucked in a mouthful of cold air after they saw this scene. The second batch and the third batch didn't have any objections either. So, they were won by Hermitage and the illusory Ocean of Blood respectively. And, they were sold at a sky-high price of 300,000 taels of gold. Ning Wuqing ferociously glared at Ma Jiangming when he had announced this number. It was obvious that Ma Jiangming had bid 300,000 taels of gold for a reason. You won't let me take advantage of you. So, I won't let you have a good time either. However, Hu Yanshao looked very relaxed. In fact, it seemed as if he had only thrown out 30 taels of silver. Obviously, there was a reason for this. The huge amount of gold that had been spent had basically belonged to the Huang clan. The young Lord Huyan had sold off the entire Huang clan's property after he had confirmed Huang Taiyang's death. In fact, he had even ransacked the Huang clan's treasury. In fact, he had even mortgaged the Huang clan's residence. The faces of the buyers and the sellers had turned pale. The sellers had obviously been forced to buy the pills. And, the buyers weren't necessarily willing either. Only the young Lord Hu Yanshao was the middleman. However, he was flushed with success. In fact, he had pocketed everything. Hu Yanshao was quite proficient in this kind of business without any capital. However, the young lord didn't care about the mentality of both the buyers and the sellers. The first round of the auction had come to an end at this point. Each of the 3 holy lands had sent one person to hand over the gold and the pills. The method of this auction was very special. So, a large amount of gold and silver had been required for the handover. So, this included the work of counting the amount of gold. And, Jun Dashao had already made arrangements for this work. If this job wasn't done by Fatty, who else could it be? Jun Moxie had only sent 8 assistants to Fatty for that mountain of gold. Moreover, he had given a clear warning to Fatty, the amount of gold must be thoroughly checked. Tang Yuan, you won't get a single cent of your shares even if it's 1% less. Tang Yuan had prepared a big pot of pork trotters to replenish his physical strength at any time. However, the situation didn't look very optimistic. After all, the first round had come to an end. And, 1/3 of that big pot of pork trotters had already disappeared. Fatty hadn't expected that the notice he had issued had mentioned that he wouldn't accept any silver or gold notes. Instead, he would use gold. In fact, he had deliberately done this to Jun Moxie in order to help him lose weight. Fatty would have cried if he had known about this. That was because Jun Moxie had only said it. And, the specific implementation had been carried out by Fatty on his own. This was like lifting a rock and smashing it on his own feet. Moreover, it had smashed very hard. It was reckoned that Fatty's weight would have decreased by a considerable amount after the gold had been processed. The auction for the 4th batch of elixirs began. Everyone straightened their backs, and pricked up their ears. The 3 holy lands weren't involved anymore. So, the secular aristocratic families had begun to compete with each other. The 4th batch of elixirs has 20 pills. The base price is still 100,000 gold taels. Moreover, each bid cannot be lower than 10,000 gold taels. Jun Moxie had barely finished his opening remarks when someone made a bid. River East's Wei clan bids 350,000 gold taels. The voice belonged to a middle-aged man. Ning Wuqing and Hu Yanshao tilted their heads, and frowned. Ma Jiangming remained expressionless. This River East's Wei clan was the first to make a bid. They didn't necessarily want to win this round of elixirs. However, They had genuinely flattered Ma Jiangming. Moreover, they had done it in front of the other two holy lands. Upstairs, Mei Shuyan issued an order in a sinking voice: River East's Wei clan will be included in the Great Golden City's list of die-hard supporters from now on. They won't be able to change their allegiance after today's matter. Therefore, we can confirm it now. Chapter 5:15. Suddenly, a loud voice rang out: the Sikong family bids 500,000 taels. Jun Moxie felt that the voice was familiar. He looked towards the source of the voice and found that it was an old acquaintance of his, Sikong Yi, the head of the Sikong family. Sikong Yi smiled slightly when he saw Jun Moxie look over. This guy was a shill. Jun Moxie had arranged this beforehand. There was no need for a shill in this situation. However, Sikong Yi wasn't willing to be left out. He opened his mouth and raised the price from 350,000 taels to 500,000 taels. The man surnamed Wei looked over in a flustered and exasperated manner. Little Sikong, do you have so much gold? Don't randomly raise the price. Sikong Yi snorted and said, I don't need your Jiangdong's Wei family to worry about it. Shut up if you don't have the money. Jun Moxie heard this and realized that these two families also had some enmity. Mei Shuyan had already arranged for Guan Qinghan to note down the names. Especially on the word Sikong clan, there was an important symbol. The Sikong family was one of the Jun family's most loyal allies. So, how could they not pay more attention to them? More people started to bid. The flat-top Guan family bids 520,000 taels. The Southwest Lu family bids 530,000 taels. The Northeast Xianyu family bids 600,000 taels. Sikong Yi and the Wei family's men sat down one after the other as the other families competed to bid. In addition, most of the families were sitting still. This was only the fourth batch of 50. So, there was no need to rush. However, there were also many people who had started earlier. The sooner they got their hands on it, the more at ease they would feel. Jun Moxie's saliva splattered everywhere as he jumped up and down. He was constantly adding oil to the fire on the stage. The whole scene was in full swing. Is there anyone else who wants to increase the price? Is there anyone else? It's 600,000 taels now. 600,000 taels going once. Oh, there's a friend over there who has raised his sign. It seems that he's stronger than I expected. He made a bid, and as expected, 650,000 taels, 650,000 taels, going once. Yes, that brother over there made a bid of 680,000 taels, 680,000 taels. There were only so many bone-tempering pills left in the world at present. The herbs used to refine these pills were all rare elixirs. So, he might not be able to find another shop if he were to miss this opportunity. The friend over there bid 700,000 taels. Everyone was smart. What was a little bit of gold to them? The family's future was the most important. Today's hard work would definitely be exchanged for glory in the future. Today's sacrifice would definitely lead to the fall of the enemy and the rise of the family. Yes, the friend over there. What? Wow! 800,000 taels. 800,000 silver going once. 800,000 taels of gold. This amount was very shocking, but if everyone thought about it, what was 800,000 taels of gold for the sake of the clan's prosperity? 800,000 going once. Jun Moxie's saliva splattered in all directions. He had almost finished everything in one go. But, he couldn't go up by the time the price reached 800,000 taels of gold. After all, this was 800,000 taels of gold, not 80 pieces of dirt. This was a terrifyingly astronomical figure. Jun Moxie repeated 800,000 going twice, 5 or 6 times with a dry mouth. Then, he finally dropped the hammer in disappointment. 800,000 going thrice, sold. Only 800,000 taels of gold. This is a genuine and rare elixir. This is a rare elixir that can transform a Xian expert's body. And, it's only sold for such a small amount of money? Is there any justice in this world? Bah! A bunch of country bumpkins who haven't seen the world. If I had known this earlier, I would have set the base price higher. June Moxie and June Dashao continued to mutter in their hearts. They were obviously still somewhat dissatisfied with the closing price a moment ago. However, the aristocratic families below were already somewhat dumbfounded. The fourth elixir had been sold for 800,000 taels of gold. A sky-high price. An absolutely sky-high price. This wasn't 800,000 taels of silver, and it wasn't 80 copper coins either. Most of these aristocratic families had a long history. Naturally, they could take out several 100,000 taels of gold, just like the Huang family. However, it would still damage their foundation. Well, the other aristocratic families would suffer a great deal of damage, but the Huang family would directly go bankrupt. If it wasn't for the family's future, who would be willing to use up to 800,000 taels of gold to exchange for a mere 20 elixirs? On average, one elixir would cost 40,000 taels of gold. Calculating like this, almost everyone's scalp was about to explode. When they looked at the buyer, it was an old man with a gloomy face. The old man's hair was white like silver, and his eyes were sharp. Although his face was somewhat gloomy, the corners of his mouth revealed a trace of gratification. It's the head of the Gongsun family, Gongsun Ju Dao. Someone whispered the name of the person who had taken out 800,000 taels of gold to exchange for 20 elixirs. Everyone's heart trembled. So, it was him. This old man was famous for his foresight. It seemed that the rumor was wrong. He had used such a large amount of gold to buy 20 elixirs, and he still had a face of gratification. If he wasn't stupid, then what was? Hearing about him in person was not as good as hearing about him in person. The lowest price was sold for 850,000 taels of gold. The atmosphere in the auction house became more and more heated as the elixirs were sold one by one. Upstairs, Guan Qinghan and Dugu Xiaoyi were writing rapidly under the guidance of Mei Shuyan's judgment, analysis, and planning. They had already written down a thick pile of paper. The information was getting more and more specific. The targets were also getting clearer and clearer. The lineup of the clans was gradually coming to the surface. The Qian Sun Serpent Queen had assumed the role of secretary to the big venerable Mei Shuyan in the Tian Fa forest. She had sorted and summarized the information. She had also made some small labels. So, she could look for whatever she wanted. The bone-tempering pill had already been recognized by everyone. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that it was closely related to the future of each clan. Therefore, everyone was displaying their remarkable abilities. If an enemy of one's clan was competing for it, then, they would raise the price with a loud rumble. It would be best if they could win it. But, they would make the enemy pay a little more even if they couldn't win it. After all, they weren't spending their own money. It didn't matter if they were young or old. Everyone swarmed into the fray under such a strange atmosphere. Everyone's eyes were getting redder and redder. The competition was getting more and more intense. A quarrel had gradually appeared. Then, it had turned into verbal abuse. Then, it had almost developed into a brawl on the spot. If the people of the three Holy Lands weren't here to keep watch, then, this place would have turned into a slaughterhouse of blood and flesh in an instant. No one left the auction house. It didn't matter if they had been photographed or not. That was because everyone wanted to see which family would get the 50 elixirs in the end. And, this clan would be treated with special attention by everyone. They would be specially sorted out and archived. This included the young talents of the younger generation. They would be placed in the scope of observation by some people. They could be allies in the future. But, they could also be murderers who would exterminate their clans in the future. Who would dare to relax their vigilance? Therefore, the number of people in the auction house didn't decrease. Moreover, the atmosphere was getting more and more intense. Such a simple auction had only sold 12 elixirs by lunchtime. This kind of speed was comparable to a snail. But, the people were still enjoying it. Onlookers, heckling, watching the excitement, opposing each other, threatening each other, exposing each other's shortcomings. It was as if the entire continent's grievances were concentrated here, but, the two ladies, Guan Qinghan and Dugu Xiaoyi, were exhausted. Sorting out these precious materials was a huge amount of work. At this time, the two ladies were somewhat envious of Tang Yuan. That guy only had to move the gold. It was so easy. Unlike here, where the writing brush couldn't keep up with the speed of talking. Moreover, there were 500 to 600 people talking down there. And, they had to sort out the useful information. Then, they had to summarize it. This was a job that required a lot of brain power. If it wasn't for Mei Xuan summarizing from the side, the two ladies would have collapsed by now. The mental pressure was too great. This information would determine the future direction of the Jun family. If there was even the slightest mistake, then they might become enemies in the future. Who could bear the consequences of that? Even though it was winter, the two ladies were already drenched in sweat. The worry on Mei Xuan's beautiful face became more and more obvious. This is not the chargeable word count. 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 Chapter 5:16. At first glance, just based on the thousands of people below, it was a powerful force to a considerable extent. If these people could work together, then there was no doubt that even one of the three holy lands might not be a match for them. Even though Supreme Being experts or experts above the Supreme Being level were extremely powerful, and ordinary people couldn't fight against them, they were still humans in the end. They could get tired, they could run out of stamina, and they could even die. If the various aristocratic families in front of them could really work together with sincerity and fight against the experts of the three holy lands regardless of the price, even the strongest expert would have to submit to them. But the relationship between these people was so complicated that it gave the Venerable Mei a big headache. There weren't many families that didn't have any grudges. Most of the families seemed to be stuck in a big swamp, and there was no way for them to get out. Some of them even involved grudges from hundreds of years ago. But now they're bringing it up. Please, this is just an auction. Why are they bringing up all these old things? Isn't it tiring? These are grudges from 400 or 500 years ago. Motherfucker, one or two of the people involved have already turned to dust, what's there to argue about? So Mei Xuan didn't understand. But it didn't matter. Instead, it was very useful for gathering information. So while Mei Xuan was worried, she was also urging Guan Qinghan and Dugu Xiaoyi to speed up the work. What made Guan Qinghan and Dugu Xiaoyi speechless was that their wrists and fingers were already numb from exhaustion. But as long as Mei Xuan simply transferred some of her energy into them, they would be able to continue working normally. But Mei Xuan didn't care about the exhaustion in her heart. Dugu and Guan Qinghan were proud daughters of heaven, and they had been loved by the elders of their families for a long time. They had never been treated like this before. But Mei Xuan was showing her special characteristics at this time. She was bossy and decisive. The tyrannical aura emitted from his body caused others to be unable to refute and could only obediently obey. On this point, even Guan Qinghan and Dugu Xiaoyi were puzzled. The two women were used to seeing big shots. In fact, they had even seen the emperor of the Tianxiang Empire many times. As for the ministers and ministers, they had seen countless of them. The mighty and tyrannical Duga Zongheng and Duga Wu Di, the murderous Jun Zhantian and Jun Wui, no one had ever been able to give them such pressure. How could a weak girl like Mei Shuiyan create such a suffocating pressure? Even His Majesty, the Emperor, was not as powerful as Mei Shuiyan's natural aura. What was the background of this big sister Mei? He actually had this kind of bearing. The two women were puzzled, but their hands did not stop moving. Their hearts were tired, but their hands did not stop moving. However, it was not entirely because of Mei Shuiyan. This matter was related to their sweetheart Jun Moxie's future plans. So, they had to persevere no matter how tired they were. In fact, they did not know that Mei Shuiyan's natural bearing was the result of commanding millions of Xian beasts in the Tianfa forest. Even when facing the lords of the three holy lands, Mei Shuiyan would do as she should. She would scold them as she should scold them. She would not swallow her anger, nor would she submit to others. How could the ruler of a small country compare to this temperament of a leader who had been at the peak for a long time? It was like the difference between heaven and earth, like the difference between heaven and earth. It was finally time for lunch. Jun Moxie heaved a sigh of relief on the stage. His throat was almost emitting smoke, but his spirit was still very excited. No matter who it was, anyone who had earned so much gold in one day would be more excited than Jun Moxie. Perhaps he would suffer a stroke or a heart attack on the spot. In just the first 12 auctions, the fourth auction had reached 800,000 taels of gold, the fifth auction had reached 850,000 taels of gold, and by the sixth auction, the price had suddenly shot up to 1 million taels of gold. Then, it continued to climb, and by the 12th auction, the price had already reached 1,200,000 taels of gold. In other words, these 12 bottles of pills had helped Jun Moxie amass a sky-high price of 10 million taels of gold. This was gold, ah! On that day, the Duga brothers had fallen into the eldest young master's trap, and ended up owing a debt of 90 million taels of silver. This debt had nearly caused the Duga family to collapse. The amount was astonishing, but it was only in terms of silver. If it were to be converted into gold, then it would only amount to 900,000 taels of gold. However, this 900,000 taels of gold was equivalent to the military expenditure of the Tianxiang Empire, the continent's #1 military power, for 3 years. If this more than 10 million gold were to be converted to RMB, then 1 tael would be equivalent to 50 grams, and 1 gram would be equivalent to 300 yuan. So, 1 tael would be equivalent to 15,000 yuan. 10 million gold, multiplied by 15,000 yuan, that was a total of 150 billion. What kind of terrifying astronomical figure was this? One wouldn't have known if one didn't calculate, but one would have jumped in fright. Guan Qinghan and Duga Xiaoyi put down their pens. They only had enough time to catch their breaths. Then, they were shocked to find that all the strength in their bodies had been sucked away along with the pens. Their bodies suddenly went limp, and they collapsed to the ground. Apart from blinking their eyes, they felt as if their bodies were floating in the clouds. This situation had startled Jun Moxie, who had just come up to drink some water. He didn't have time to drink water, and hastily channeled the purest heaven and earth aura into each of them. This aura couldn't be mentioned in the same breath as the great beauty's Zhu Mei's. It was purer, sharper, and more effective. In fact, the two women's condition had been completely restored. This act of kindness left the two women grumbling incessantly. It's too fast. We don't even have time to rest. It's not our bodies that are tired, it's our hearts that are tired. Therefore, they seized the time to arrange the meals for these people. The entire Tianxiang city's restaurants and hotels were full that morning. They had been booked by the Jun family, so that these people could eat and drink to their heart's content. All the expenses had been charged to the aristocratic hall's account. Any one of these people was a god of wealth. So, they couldn't be neglected. Jun Moxie's Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer had played the role of a guide for the day. Each of them had brought a large group of people to eat. Delicacies from land and sea were provided to fill their stomachs, and so on. All the restaurants and hotels of Tianxiang City had made a huge windfall on this day. This day would be known as the most luxurious day in the entire Tianxiang City. As for Jun Moxie, he had arranged a grand banquet in the aristocratic hall, and had invited the people of the three holy lands. He had to give these people face. So, he didn't dare to casually dismiss them. He reckoned that the people of these three families would fly into a rage if they were allowed to eat outside like the other aristocratic families. These people want to find trouble with my family at this time, but they can't find it. So, how can I give them an excuse? Therefore, Jun Dashao had been very attentive to his hospitality. He had eaten a lot more luxurious food than outside. But, it wasn't inferior in any way. Naturally, the Qian Sun Serpent Queen had been very indignant when Jun Moxie had brought out the snake soup that he had prepared beforehand. So, she had ferociously kicked Jun Dashao's buttocks a few times. Jun Dashao was battered and exhausted. He forced a smile, and explained repeatedly, "These are farmed." Farmed. Jun Dashao had occupied a table alone with the Qian Sun Serpent Queen, Mei Shuiyan, Guan Qinghan, and Dugu Xiaoi. Bear Shan Shan and Earth Cracker didn't want to sit at the table no matter what. So, they were dragged to the table by Jun Moxie with great difficulty. But, they were glared at by Mei Shuiyan, and returned to their seats. So, they had no choice but to open another table with Hai Chenfeng and Song Shang. As for Tang Dashao, he was still gasping for breath as he counted the gold. It was said that this lord's miser had reached a frightening level. He had fainted twice just from counting the gold, and he still hadn't rested. His sweat was flowing like a small river. But, he still hadn't fainted. An ordinary person would have become numb after seeing so much gold, no matter how much they loved money as much as their life. However, Tang Yuan Dashao's eyes were still glittering with a golden light. His belly was full of money-grubber plans. He was in high spirits. Sun Xiaomei felt distressed when she saw this. She wanted to go over and stop him. It's good to rest a little. But, she was glared at by Jun Moxie, and said, "You don't want him to lose weight, do you? This is a good idea that I came up with great difficulty. Only by reducing his weight can we carry out the next step. He's fat to this extent now. So, it's useless to practice martial arts. He won't be able to reduce his weight if he doesn't tire himself out this time." Sun Xiaomei was distressed. But, she resisted the urge to persuade him. In fact, Fatty Tang wouldn't listen even if she tried to persuade him. Out of concern, Sun Xiaomei went over and asked, "Fatty, are you tired?" In the end, young Master Tang, who was completely engrossed in gold, opened his mouth wide and sweated profusely. His eyes, which were filled with dazzling golden light, actually didn't see who was speaking. He straightened his neck and said, "Tired? Tired? So much gold and you're still tired? It's all money. They're all beauties. In the future, when I take a concubine or a wife, I'll have to use it." "Take a concubine or a wife?" Miss Sun's eyes widened. She couldn't believe her ears. This guy is actually thinking about this now. Then, Miss Sun turned around and left angrily. She only left one sentence, "Go to hell. You can spend the rest of your life with your gold. I think I'll just tire you to death today. That way, you won't have to piss me off in the future. How can I tire myself to death? Even if I die, I'll die happily." Tang Yuan rolled his eyes and replied subconsciously. Then, he fell into the great happiness and extreme excitement of counting gold. Poor Fatty. He was so happy and greedy that he didn't realize that he had caused a disaster. A huge disaster. Chapter 5:17. Jun Moxie drank a pot of aged wine to his heart's content. Then, he wolfed down the food to his heart's content. Finally, he regained his spirit. He began to eat all kinds of dishes in a leisurely manner. At the same time, he eagerly served the dishes to the four beauties. "Miss May, come and try this. This is good stuff. It can nourish the yin and nourish the kidneys. It can also beautify your face. You don't need this, but why would a woman mind being more outstanding? Isn't that right, Qinghan? Come and eat this. It can replenish your blood. Your face has been pale for the past few days. It's really making my heart ache. Xiao Yi, come and eat this. It's very delicious. Try chewing it. Doesn't it taste better the more you chew it? Haha, it's mixed with my secret recipe. The taste is different from the others. Qian Sun, don't just eat vegetables. Come and try this snake stew. It's so delicious. It melts in your mouth. It's really a rare delicacy, Jun Moxie. If you want to die, then just say it. I'll fulfill your wish. Qian Sun Serpent Queen was so angry that her nose was almost crooked. Her eyes were filled with killing intent. This guy actually made me, the Snake King, eat snake meat. Could he be any more shameless, eh? Are you still not satisfied? It's my fault. Hee hee, Miss Qian Sun, these little snakes naturally can't enter your eyes. Next time, I'll definitely do my best to catch a Snake King and stew it for you. Jun Moxie continued to tease her recklessly. Seeing that Qian Sun Serpent Queen was about to explode, Mei Xuan snorted and looked at Jun Moxie. Shut up. Jun Moxie's words stopped abruptly. He ate in silence. We can't afford to offend this person. She's too ferocious. Finally, he finished his meal. There was still some time left. Jun Moxie rolled his eyes and said, "Since I'm here, I'll tell you guys a story." Jun Mo Xia didn't care whether the four women agreed or not after he finished speaking. Instead, he opened his big mouth and started to tell a story. This time, young Master Jun was telling the story of the Legend of the White Snake. Naturally, it was different from the traditional version of the Legend of the White Snake. In his mouth, these two snakes, one white snake and one green snake, were both profound beasts. Moreover, they were beast kings and supreme-level powerhouses. The story of the Legend of the White Snake, Jun Moxie's story, was full of ups and downs. It was very captivating. Even Qian Sun Serpent Queen, who thought he was teasing her at first, was fascinated. When she heard that the white snake had given birth to a son for Su Xian, Qian Sun Serpent Queen held her cheeks and blushed. Suddenly, she asked, that the white snake gave birth to a baby, or an egg? This seems to be a baby. Jun Moxie rubbed his chin and said thoughtfully, but this is actually impossible to verify. Unless there's a mystical beast supreme snake king who can take human form marrying a man of the mortal world, then we should be able to understand. Qian Sun Serpent Queen grabbed the teapot on the table and was about to throw it at his face. Everyone burst into laughter. Don't interrupt. Hurry up and continue. What happened next? Mei Xuan urged hurriedly. The leader of Tian Fa was so fascinated by the story that she even interfered and urged loudly. Fa Hai was a great scholar, and finally, he locked the white snake under the 6 and 6 pagoda. Jun Moxie continued hurriedly and said, unless the West Lake dries up and the Leifeng Pagoda collapses, the Beast King will never be able to come out. The bottom of the West Lake goes straight to the sea. When will it dry up? And the Leifeng Pagoda is made of copper. It has stood in the human world for thousands of years. Its foundation is extremely solid. It was even built by an immortal himself. How could it collapse? So, this so-called condition is just a deception. When Jun Moxie said this, everyone sighed together. Qian Sun Serpent Queen felt the same. Her eyes turned red. Dugu Xiaoyi's tears fell down. She sobbed and said, what should we do? Then she will never be able to come out. Poor white snake. Oh, so poor. How about predicting the future? Listen to the next part. June Moxie smiled mischievously and wanted to keep them guessing. But the four women glared at him angrily at the same time. Both of his ears were grabbed and twisted fiercely. Are you going to tell me or not? Under such a classic torture, Jun Dashao did not give in. He continued with a bitter face. So, in order to save his mother, the son of the white snake went through 81 difficulties, and so on, and finally, he was rescued, and the family was reunited. Jun Moxie wiped his sweat. He wanted to tease the Snake King, but he did not expect himself to be caught in a trap of his own making. He was forced to tell such a long story. At last, the result was a happy ending. The lovers finally got married. That abominable Fa Hai really deserved to die. The love between a man and a woman had nothing to do with him. He interfered wantonly and made the husband and wife separated for so many years. Dugu Xiaoli wiped her tears and said angrily, none of these great scholars are good people. Mei Xuan and the other two women obviously felt the same way. They nodded together. Later, some busybodies made up a song about their experience. So it was sung all over the world. The love between the white snake and Su Xian finally became an immortal legend. Jun Moxie smiled faintly and ended the story. What song? Let's hear it. Guan Qinghan and Dugu Xiaoli were suddenly interested. Even Mei Xuan and Qian Sun Serpent Queen had a look of expectation in their eyes. Ahem. My voice is really not suitable for singing. Forget it. It's just a song. Jun Moxie didn't expect that there would be an interlude here. He was a little embarrassed. Well, it wasn't that he didn't know how to sing this song, but, for this great assassin to really sing at the top of his voice, whether it was in his previous life or this life, he had never done it, and he was definitely not willing to do it. No. Hurry up and sing. Do you still want your ears? The four women spoke in unison, and pressed forward at the same time. Blocking off all directions, young Master Jun had no place to hide. Jun Moxie cried bitterly in his heart and raised his hands to surrender. I can sing, but I have to make it clear that I really don't know how to sing. I can only hum slowly. This song is so old that I've almost forgotten it. No. You must remember it all, or you can forget about your ears. They said in unison again. Jun Moxie had no choice but to give in again. He closed his eyes and adjusted his emotions. He coughed a few times. The women all held their breath. Jun Moxie finally, slowly hummed. Fate brings us together from thousands of miles away. It's hard to hold hands if we're not fated to meet each other. 10 years spent in the same boat. 100 years spent in the same pillow. Jun Moxie finally finished humming with difficulty. He seemed to have missed a few sentences. But his face was thicker than the city wall. He didn't care about this. But it was such an incomplete song, coupled with the extremely poignant melody and touching lyrics, that made the eyes of the women blurred for a while. What a beautiful song. Mei Xuan had a dreamy color on her face. She said faintly, what a beautiful mood. The women nodded. After listening to the story and hearing this song, they suddenly felt that they were closely related to the characters in the story. They felt happy, angry, sad, and happy, as they parted with life and death. For a moment, no one spoke. In the silence, a thin sound of a flute sounded faintly. It was like the sound of nature. It was Guan Qinghan taking out the jade flute from her sleeve. She slowly played it according to the tune that Jun Moxie hummed. The sound of the flute seemed to bring everyone into the illusory story. After a long time, the sound of the flute finally dissipated. Everyone finally came back to their senses. What a beautiful song. I've never heard such a beautiful song before. Dugu Xiaoyi clapped her hands with an intoxicated expression on her face. Suddenly, she said in surprise, Brother Amos, yeah. I've never heard the story before. I've never heard this song either. Where did you get it? This question attracted everyone's attention to June Moxie. June Moxie suddenly looked a little embarrassed. He coughed a few times and said, "This. I actually heard it by accident. I've long forgotten who told me about it. It's been a long time. It's already very good that I can still remember it. Ah, look, we're almost done eating. The afternoon auction is about to start. We have to hurry up and prepare." "Humph. You must have something else." Dugu Xiaoli pouted and said with certainty, "I'll dig you up." The little girl's voice was very sure. It was as if she was making threatening gestures. June Moxie was sweating profusely. If he was really pestered by this little girl and asked for songs every day, his stock would be gone in 2 days. At this time, a savior came. A clear knock came from the door. Then, Hai Chen Feng said, "Third young master, the elders of the 3 holy lands have something to discuss with you." "I don't know." "The 3 holy lands?" June Moxie and Mei Xueyan looked at each other. Then, they said, "I'll go over." Hai Chen Feng quietly complied outside. Mei Xueyan frowned and stood up. "Will you accompany me?" June Moxie looked at Mei Xueyan. "Well, I'll go with you. You don't know much about these people. Suffering a loss is a small matter. But, it's very likely that it will turn into a bloodbath. You're still too weak." Mei Xueyan smiled faintly. There was a hint of concern in her eyes. "I've dealt with them before. I'm sure they won't recognize me. But, I can give you some advice if I'm present." June Moxie smiled faintly and said, "I think it's about the pills. Moreover, it's about the alchemist. Apart from that, why would these people from the Holy Lands care about an idle person like me? There won't be a big fight." Chapter 518. Bloodshed is caused by cause and effect. Greed is the original sin. June Moxie said calmly, "We are not afraid of anyone's provocation. Not to mention that you're here to oversee things. Even if I'm alone, there's nothing to be afraid of." Mei Xueyan nodded, and the two walked out together. When they arrived at the hall where Hermitage was, they saw that the people of the illusory ocean of blood and the great golden city were already waiting there. Hermitage Ning Wuqing was sitting at the head of the table, while the illusory ocean of blood and the great golden city were sitting on the left and right respectively. This left the lowest seat for June Moxie. Seeing June Dashao's arrival, the 3 holy lands didn't even bother to greet him. It was obvious that the 3 holy lands had a tacit understanding to give June Moxie a show of strength. Seeing this situation, even with Mei Xueyan's self-restraint, she couldn't help but frown, feeling a little angry. On the contrary, June Moxie didn't say anything. He only gave her a meaningful glance, and the two of them sat down. June Moxie's buttocks had just touched the chair, and he had already crossed his legs out of habit. "Seniors, you've come to Tianxiang City. This June didn't go out to welcome you. It's very rude of me. Here, I thank you for your hospitality. Please don't blame me. Haha, I presume that everyone has already had their lunch. How is it?" June Moxie cupped his hands in greeting. His words were naturally pleasant to hear, but since he had said it while crossing his legs, it was somewhat perfunctory. Immediately, the 15 experts present all became somewhat unhappy. However, as soon as they saw Mei Xueyan's peerless beauty, they couldn't help but stare blankly for a moment. In fact, they even forgot to get angry. "Not at all. Young friend, please sit down, there's no need to be polite. Young friend is very thoughtful and has arranged everything properly. We are very satisfied." Ning Wuqing smiled faintly and gestured with his hand. On the other hand, Ma Jiangming let out a strange laugh and said in a gloomy tone, "Young Master June, we wish to discuss an important matter with young Master June regarding the future of the continent. I wonder who this young lady beside young Master June is." All the experts present were dazzled by Mei Xueyan's peerless beauty. Even a senior expert like Ning Wuqing couldn't help but have a trace of admiration in his eyes. Only Ma Jiangming didn't seem to feel anything. In fact, there was even a trace of disgust in his eyes as he looked at Mei Xuan. This is my wife. Ha ha ha. Jun Mo Xia was secretly pleased. I was hoping that someone would ask this question so that this young master can take advantage of them. Taking advantage of others is a habit. Taking advantage of others will become a habit. Not only will this young master get used to it, but the one being taken advantage of will also get used to it. He smiled as he pondered. He was afraid that the opposite party wouldn't understand. So, he patiently explained, she's my wife, the one who sleeps beside me, hee. Mei Xuyan's pretty face turned red. She fiercely glared at him. However, she couldn't refute him in this situation. So, she had no choice but to let him be complacent for the time being. She would take good care of him on the 15th day of the 8th month. Oh. This young lady is graceful and graceful. Her facial features are picturesque. She looks like a celestial fairy. Young Master Jun is truly blessed. A talented man and a beautiful woman are a match made in heaven. Ha! Ning Wuqing said with a smile. Ning Wuqing and Ma Jiangming had received a favor from Jun Moxie. They had eaten a bone-tempering pill for free. So, they now knew that they had eaten at least 50 to 60,000 gold taels. This favor was too big. Therefore, the two of them were too embarrassed to make things difficult for Jun Moxie. Therefore, the main character of today's matter had fallen on the body of another holy land, the illusory ocean of blood. Moreover, the person in charge of the illusory ocean of blood was their young lord, Huyan Shao. Therefore, it would be easier to communicate with the younger generation. At least, there wouldn't be a need for a senior expert like him to personally greet a junior like Jun Moxie. It was a pity that they didn't know that the people of the illusory ocean of blood had intervened in the dispute between the three big families and the Huang family. Moreover, they had come to the Jun family to show off their strength. They had even tried to steal the pills. Therefore, a huge conflict had already broken out between the two families. In fact, the number one expert of the illusory ocean of blood, Huang Taiyang, had perished in the Jun family. It could be said that the two sides were irreconcilable enemies. Ning Wuqing and Ma Jiangming would have been very depressed if they had come to know about this matter. After all, the illusory ocean of blood wouldn't have had the slightest hope of negotiating with Jun Moxie on behalf of the three big families in such a situation. In fact, the illusory ocean of blood wouldn't have had any hope even if they had begged Jun Moxie to negotiate with them. Young Master Jun. I'm the young lord of the illusory ocean of blood, Huyan Shao. Huyan Zhao's complexion was exceptionally gloomy as he looked at Jun Moxie. His sinister eyes were staring at Jun Dashao like a viper. He remained motionless. And, an invisible pressure pressed down on Jun Moxie along with his movements. Huyan Zhao's plan was very good. His Xian cultivation had already reached the 3rd grade of Shenxian's realm. So, he planned to use his formidable imposing manner to suppress the opponent before the battle even started. After all, Jun Moxie's imposing manner would fall into a disadvantageous position. Then, Huyan Shao would be in charge of the following negotiations. Wouldn't it be easy for the three holy lands to get what they wanted at that time? It's an honor to meet you in person. Young Lord Huyan has the demeanor of an invincible expert under the heavens. You're truly outstanding. I admire you. In fact, I admire you a lot. Jun Moxie was being polite with his words. However, he was still sitting with his legs crossed. He looked at Huyan Shao with a faint smile on his face. In fact, it seemed as if he was looking at a clown performing a vaudeville act. Huyan Zhao's imposing manner was like a tsunami as it came in contact with Jun Moxie. But, it seemed as if a wave had met a reef that had surfaced on the water's surface. Huyan Zhao's powerful and imposing manner hit Jun Moxie's face. However, it seemed as if Jun Moxie hadn't felt anything. On the contrary, Hu Yanxiao felt as if his punch had landed on cotton. This made his chest feel somewhat uncomfortable. Ning Wuqing wrinkled his brows. Ma Jiangming's pupils also shrank. This point alone was enough to prove that the rumor that the Jun family had an unrivaled expert was true. Their strength was far above Hu Yanxiao's. However, they wouldn't necessarily be able to deal with Hu Yanxiao's oppressive imposing manner with such ease. In fact, they wouldn't have been able to remain calm and composed. However, no one noticed that the fairy-like girl had lifted her eyelids slightly. And that had reduced Hu Yanxiao's oppressive imposing manner into nothingness. Jun Moxie could have withstood it. But he wouldn't have been able to do it so easily. Mei Xueyan couldn't stand the arrogance of the people of the Three Holy Lands. You want to show me your strength? I also want to show you my strength. Let's see who's stronger than the other. The other experts of the Three Holy Lands were still sitting in their original places. They hadn't unleashed their martial arts. However, they felt that even an expert like Shen Xian would have felt uneasy if he had been sitting in front of him. However, Jun Moxie had acted in such a carefree and natural manner. Therefore, everyone became awed. Jun Moxie is an extraordinary man. But he's still a young man who isn't even 20 years old. How could he have taught such an amazing disciple if he didn't have an exceedingly powerful master behind him? Well said. Young Master Jun is young and promising. His Xian skills are brilliant. Moreover, the Jun family is like an impenetrable fortress. Such a family background and such methods are truly enviable, Hu Yanxiao spoke up in a gloomy manner. Young lord is overpraising me. The Jun family is only a worldly family. So, how can it be considered as an elegant family? We can barely cope with a few thieves and thieves. But, we're not worth mentioning if we were to face a truly strong expert. He. Jun Moxie replied modestly. His face was calm and pure. Hu Yanxiao's face turned red. It seemed as if he wanted to get angry. Other people might have thought that Jun Moxie was being modest when he had said these words. However, how could Hu Yanxiao not understand it since he was the person involved? Thieves and thieves. Aren't you talking about Huang Taiyang? He belongs to my illusory ocean of blood. This young lord admits that I'm no match for young Master Jun. However, this matter is related to the future of the continent. It's related to the well-being of the common people. So, I've come here today in hopes that young Master Jun can give me an explanation. Hu Yanxiao's gloomy eyes flashed with anger as he spoke up in a slow manner. Jun Moxie was left speechless. How can the so-called people of the Holy Land behave like this? They talk about the common people of the world. And they talk about the future of the continent. Do you really represent anything? Moreover, I don't know how this Hu Yanxiao managed to slow down the aging process of an ordinary Tian Xian expert because of his Xian skills. Even a 60-70-year-old expert would look like a 30 or 40-year-old expert. But this young lord is different. Jun Moxie had determined that this young lord was at least at the level of Shen Xian's level of cultivation through the contact he had with him a moment ago. He was at most 50 years old. It could be said that he had made rapid progress in his cultivation. However, his actual age and appearance seemed to complement each other. In fact, it was quite appropriate. He looks like an old man no matter how you look at him. And this old man is still calling me this young lord. This makes people's teeth ache. Young lord, young lord, young lord, and so on. Everyone knows that this young lord isn't very old. He might be 17 or 18 years old, or perhaps 20 or 30 years old. But he would be too embarrassed to call himself this young lord if he's over 40 years old. Who has ever seen an old man open his mouth and say, this young lord? Jun Moxie really wanted to say, you're so old that your teeth are falling out. So, what's the fart? Young lord, please speak clearly if you have something to say. This Jun is slow-witted. I don't understand how a puny June Moxie can be involved with the common people of the world and the future of the continent. June Moxie had deliberately emphasized the word, young lord. Moreover, he had distanced himself from the last two words. The experts from the elusive world of immortals and the supreme golden city snorted. Hu Yanzhao's face turned red. He angrily asked, this young lord. Lord wants to ask you. How many bone-tempering pills do you have left? And, where is the person who refined those pills now? He is the key to this matter. You're just a puny June Moxie. So, you're nothing. Hu Yanzhao's anger had been aroused by June Moxie's words. So, he couldn't help but blurt out these words. But, he remembered June Moxie's words as he was addressing himself. And, he froze for a moment. The experts of the illusory ocean of blood could restrain their laughter. But, how could the experts of the other two holy lands endure it? Hu Yanzhao's face turned red as he faced such an embarrassing situation. He was almost at a loss for what to do. Even the imposing manner in which he had been speaking had become subdued. Chapter 519. Today's outbreak. First update. Asking for a guaranteed monthly ticket. I'll make it clear that the future outbreaks will be concentrated in the afternoon and evening. But, today is the first day of November. So, I'll make an exception. I've exhausted the strength of 9 oxen, 2 tigers, 3 camels, and 5 donkeys in order to write this. Sure enough, it was as expected. June Moxie sneered. He rolled his eyes, and said, young Lord Huyen, are you trying to interrogate me? Haha, that's right. How can a trifling June family enter the eyes of the experts of the 3 holy lands? So, what are you doing here if that's the case? Even if I'm interrogating you, so what? Everything we do is for the sake of the common people's future and the general trend of the world. Are you going to tell me or not? June Moxie, you must think about it carefully. Don't become a sinner for all eternity. Hu Yanzhao looked to his left and right. Then, he suddenly became courageous, and grinned nastily. Everyone here today is an expert of the 3 holy lands. You are only a young master of a secular family. So, what can you do even if you are talented? I'll take this opportunity to settle old and new enmity. You dared to kill the people of my illusory ocean of blood? I'll kill you. Ning Wuqing sighed. He despised him in his heart. Just by looking at this young sect leader's current expression, one could tell that this young sect leader was absolutely useless. For the sake of the common people's future. You don't seem to have the qualifications to say these words. June Moxie looked at him disdainfully and said, Huang Taiyang would have been barely qualified to say these words if he were here. But, it's a pity that you're not. You're far from qualified. Ma Jiangming rolled his eyes. He didn't want to make the situation too awkward. So, he took the opportunity to change the topic, that old bastard Huang Taiyang. Who knows where he's gone? I haven't seen him for many years. This old man misses him very much. Hu Yanzhao stamped his foot and said in a sharp voice, June Moxie, why are you pretending to be confused? Old Huang has already been killed by your dirty tricks. Do you think I don't know that? I didn't want to make things difficult for you today, but I didn't expect you to be so ungrateful. Making an enemy of my blood sea is making an enemy of the 3 great holy lands. Making an enemy of the 3 great holy lands is making an enemy of the entire world. Tell me the whereabouts of the alchemist, and I can still show you mercy. Otherwise. What? Ning Wuqing and Ma Jiangming were both taken aback. Their eyes snapped open, and they sat up straight. However, they obviously wouldn't get involved in Hu Yanzhao's nonsense. After all, they were more concerned about another piece of news. Huang Taiyang is dead. And to die at the hands of this young man? A sinister scheme. This was simply the most unfunny joke. June Moxie opened his mouth slowly. You bully and humiliate someone's family in their own home. The people of the 3 Holy Lands shouldn't be so lacking in morals, right? Is this what you call, for the common people of the world? Is this for the future of the continent? Ning Wuqing smiled bitterly. This brat's words are too out of tune. If this wife of yours calls her a weak woman, then I'm afraid that you won't be able to find many strong men in the whole world. Ning Wuqing made a gesture with his hands, and signaled everyone to calm down. He smiled and said, our original intention was that young Master June might not be able to recognize the miraculous effects of this pill. So, it might be taken advantage of by some scoundrels. But, we don't need to worry since young Master June has so many experts here. So, they can ensure the safety of this miraculous pill. We thought that young Master June didn't know enough about this miraculous pill. After all, he wasn't as reliable as our 3 Holy Lands. But, it seems that we've been worrying too much. Ning Wuqing hadn't said it clearly. But, he had clearly hinted to June Moxie, we won't use force this time. June Moxie pursed his lips. He muttered in his heart, you want to use force? But, do you have the confidence to do so? If you dare to act recklessly again, I'll kill you. However, Ning Wuqing's attitude was very straightforward. He had clearly said, if you are not strong enough, then we will use force. In fact, June Moxie was quite appreciative of this point. Faced with such a miraculous pill, who wouldn't want to keep it for themselves? Rather than sneakily playing dirty tricks, it was better to make things clear. Even if they were bad, they would do it openly. Even if they were despicable, they would still be despicable. Now, let's get back to business. This old man represents the Hermitage, and is here to discuss with young Master June. Ning Wuqing looked at Mei Shuyan with some fear. He then said in a self-mocking manner, originally, the palace lord had given strict orders to bring back the person who can refine the pill to the immortal palace. But now, it seems that, there's no point in bringing this up. But, this miraculous pill, our Hermitage wishes to have an extra portion. I wonder if young Master June can mediate, and not make things too difficult for this old man. According to the rules of the auction, each party could only bid for 1 portion. Even the 3 Holy Lands were no exception. Ning Wuqing was naturally aware of this matter. But with his status, he was willing to lower his face and speak in such a manner. This was already giving June Moxie enough face. June Moxie did not say a word. He was waiting for Mei Shuyan's reaction. From what Mei Shuyan had said in the Tian Fa forest, it could be seen that Mei Shuyan's brother, the Venerable Mei, had a grudge with the Hermitage. In fact, it was not a small grudge. Hence, in this matter, June Moxie had to consider Mei Shuyan's opinion. If Mei Shuyan was not willing, then he would use the rules of the auction to reject her. If it's just 1 portion, it's not a problem. Mei Shuyan said softly, but, you must announce it in front of everyone, and only 1 portion. In addition, you must pay according to the highest price of the auction. We will give Hermitage face and give you an extra portion. This is already an exception. If Mr. Ning still has any objections, then forget it. June Moxie's heart was filled with complicated feelings. Mei Shuyan didn't even think about it before saying these words. This meant that in her heart, no matter when, the war for seizing the heavens was the most important. She was really looking at the big picture. She was only a Xian beast. But this kind of breadth of mind was really worthy of admiration. Compared to the 3 Holy Lands who were talking about the common people of the world and the future of the continent, these people should really die of shame. This condition is very reasonable. Then, it's settled. Many thanks. Ning Wuqing was silent for a moment, and then agreed to this condition. Today's matter could no longer be carried out. He could only try his best to fight for the greatest benefits. Everything would have to wait until he returned and reported to the palace master. Being able to obtain an extra portion of pills was already an unexpected harvest. As for the highest price, it was not in this expert's heart. After all, gold and silver were just worldly possessions. Our supreme golden city also wants an extra portion. Ma Jiangming said coldly. Since Ning Wuqing had asked for an extra portion, he was naturally not willing to fall behind. All right, the conditions are the same as Hermitage's. Mei Shuyan Lenglang looked at him. She could clearly see the killing intent in Ma Jiangming's eyes, but she still agreed. Mei Shuyan was thinking about the war for seizing the heavens that was coming soon. Our illusory ocean of blood. Hu Yanshao hadn't even finished speaking when he was interrupted by Jun Moxie. He was afraid that Mei Shuyan would think of the big picture and give away the pills. So, he straightforwardly refused. The illusory ocean of blood doesn't have it. The illusory ocean of blood has become mortal enemies. So, why would they give away pills? Why? Hu Yanshao suddenly jumped up. He suddenly felt the blood rushing to his head. Jun Moxie, you dare to humiliate me. Hermitage had made a request, and it had been granted. The Supreme Golden City had made a request, and it had been granted. But, the illusory ocean of blood had refused. This was like a fierce slap to the faces of these 5 people from the illusory ocean of blood. It was loud and clear. Chapter 520. Today, the second update has been delivered. The third update is being revised. Jun Moxie calmly raised his head and looked at them. Why? Because the 3 holy lands have a mixture of good and bad people. Hermitage and the Great Golden City have a lofty status. But, they know that they have to abide by the rules of the secular world. Therefore, I still believe that the 2 holy lands are upright and aboveboard people no matter what happens in the future. At least, they are not as despicable as your illusory ocean of blood. Moreover, I believe that the 2 holy lands have bought this pill to prepare for the war for seizing the heavens. So, I, Jun Moxie, can even give it to them as a gift. Jun Moxie's words had greatly flattered Hermitage and the Great Golden City. But, it had also suppressed the illusory ocean of blood. And, it had automatically divided them. Everyone knew his intentions. But, Hermitage and the Great Golden City had already achieved their goal. So, how could they be willing to complicate matters? Therefore, Jun Moxie had calculated that they wouldn't join hands again. Hu Yanzhao's nose had become crooked. His face had turned red. He roared like a mountain. Don't tell me that our illusory ocean of blood isn't preparing for the war for seizing the heavens. Don't tell me that our illusory ocean of blood is only doing this for ourselves. Jun Moxie, you dare to humiliate and slander our illusory ocean of blood? Are you tired of living? Is that so? Why didn't I see that? I only saw that your illusory ocean of blood had repeatedly sent people to the Jun family to steal the pill. But, you didn't feel ashamed after we found out about it. Instead, you brazenly blackmailed us. You even threatened to exterminate our Jun family by force. You forced us to hand over the pill. Jun Mo's eyes flashed like electricity as he coldly looked at Hu Yanshao. You've failed once. So, you've sent an expert above the great master level, Huang Taiyang, to carry out this thieving act. You even threatened to exterminate my entire family. Such despicable behavior has never been seen in this world. Our Jun family would have been exterminated a long time ago if it weren't for the fact that we still needed to defend ourselves. And, we wouldn't be holding this auction today. Hu Yanshao, I really have to admire you. You've lost all your experts after your treacherous plan has been foiled. And, you've seen that you can't force your way out. But, you still have the cheek to ask me for more. Jun Moxie snorted. Then, he said disdainfully, Hu Yanshao, where did you learn to be so thick-skinned? Is this the unique divine technique of your illusory ocean of blood? As expected, he is unparalleled in the world. Could it be that the most despicable person is invincible in the world? There's such a thing. Ning Wuqing frowned. His complexion sank. Then, his eyes swept towards Hu Yanshao like 2 sword lights. Ma Jiangming also had a look of disdain on his face. Yes, the Great Golden City was determined to get the elixir as well as the alchemist. However, they would never be as despicable as the illusory Blood Sea. A bunch of nonsense. Hu Yanzhao's face was about to bleed. He felt ashamed under the contemptuous gazes of the 10 experts of the other 2 holy lands. Jun Moxie, you're slandering me. You must know the reason behind this. I'm talking nonsense. How am I talking nonsense? Hu Yanzhao. Did 2 great master-level experts break into the Jun family that night? Did they trespass into the courtyard where the women of the Jun family live? Were they subordinates of your illusory ocean of blood? Did you order them to do this? You're the leader of the illusory ocean of blood. So, how can you get away with this? Jun Moxie interrupted him. Lengleng asked. Nonsense. It was clearly old Huang Taiyang who had instructed them to go. How could I have instructed them? Hu Yanzhao blurted out the truth under the watchful gazes of the 3 experts, Ning Wuqing, Ma Jiangming, and Mei Xuan. Huang Taiyang instructed them. That's good. Even if Huang Taiyang had overstepped his authority and issued the order, isn't Huang Taiyang a member of your illusory ocean of blood? You're pushing all the blame onto a dead man. You're a coward. Do you think you can shirk your responsibility like this? What a joke. Jun Moxie laughed in a mocking manner. Ning Wuqing and Ma Jiangming also sighed. Jun Moxie is saying that Huang Taiyang instructed them. You're the young lord of the illusory ocean of blood. How could you say such thoughtless words? Is there any difference between Huang Taiyang instructing you or your father Huyan Ao Bo instructing you? Moreover, you, the young lord, are right next to me. Even if Huang Taiyang had overstepped his authority and issued orders on behalf of others, you should have shouldered the responsibility as the young lord since he's already dead. But, not only are you unwilling to shoulder the responsibility, but you've even spoken in such a manner. Well, I'll take what you've said as the truth. Then, Huang Taiyang personally went to the Jun family's tower the next night. He acted willfully and unscrupulously. In fact, it was enough to intimidate the entire Tianxiang city. It can be said that everyone in the capital knows about this. My Jun family would have been destroyed a long time ago if it weren't for the fact that there were still a few capable people in my Jun family. In fact, almost the entire capital is looking at my Jun family as a joke. My Jun family has been established for dozens of years. But, no one has ever trampled on us like this even when we were in dire straits. So, may I ask the young lord if you still want to say that Huang Taiyang acted arbitrarily in this matter? And, he didn't even seek your consent. In fact, you weren't even aware of this matter until now. Isn't your position as the young lord a little too pitiful? Jun Moxie smiled mischievously. He didn't relax at all. Instead, he continued to interrogate Hu Yanzhao. Hu Yanzhao was left dumbfounded. After all, this was the truth. And, he couldn't deny it. In fact, he couldn't blame Jun Moxie for not explaining the whole matter clearly. That was because Jun Moxie hadn't mentioned the cause of this matter. The cause of this matter was because the Huang family had distorted the truth. They had wanted to use the strength of Huang Taiyang and the illusory ocean of blood to suppress the 3 great families. Huang Taiyang had stepped forward on behalf of his own family. So, there was nothing wrong with that. But, the fact was that the Huang family had made a mistake. So, there was no justification for this. So, it would be meaningless even if they were forced to talk about this matter. That's because Huang Taiyang's original intention had 2 objectives. The first one was revenge. And, the second one was the divine pills. Moreover, it was very obvious that the illusory ocean of blood wanted to monopolize all the divine pills. In fact, they even wanted to take the people along with them. Everyone present on the scene was experienced. So, how could they not understand this? Ning Wuqing and Ma Jiangming looked at Huyan Shao with cold eyes as they thought of this. It's fortunate that the Jun family has another expert here to keep watch. So, they can deflect the illusory ocean of blood's edge. Otherwise, wouldn't the illusory ocean of blood have succeeded? Jun Moxie coldly snorted. Then, he turned towards Ning Wuqing and Ma Jiangming. Words can't be made clear if they don't speak. And, the two seniors should understand what I mean by now, right? Our Jun family has already killed 2 groups of experts from the illusory ocean of blood who had gone to the Jun family to steal the divine pills. One of them was a superior great master, Huang Taiyang. So, I would like to ask the 2 seniors, will the illusory ocean of blood let us off if they find out about this? Ning Wuqing and Ma Jiangming smiled bitterly at each other. Does this need to be said? You've killed their people. And, it doesn't matter who's right or wrong. It doesn't matter what the reason is. So, this enmity has already been sown. So, it doesn't matter who's right or wrong in this world. So, it doesn't matter who's right or wrong. And, it doesn't matter which side you're on. So, this enmity has already been sown. I can tell from the 2 seniors' expressions that the illusory ocean of blood won't let our Jun family off. They were in the wrong in this matter. But, the illusory ocean of blood is one of the 3 holy lands of the world. So, they can't afford to lose this much face. Now, our Jun family is facing a knife no matter what we stretch our head out, and a knife no matter what. So, why should I give the illusory ocean of blood those pills for free? Should I let them train some talented people to deal with us? Jun Moxie's expression was very sincere. In fact, it even seemed as if he had been wronged. The aristocratic hall is a business. And, the rules have never been broken. It's true that the 20 pills were restricted by the rules. But, it was also for the sake of the war for seizing the heavens. So, it can be considered as my Jun family's contribution to the common people of the world. Don't tell me that my Jun family will give such divine pills to the enemy for a trifling 300,000 taels of gold. But, things can only be done once. The illusory ocean of blood can forget about enjoying the same treatment as the Hermitage and the Great Golden City. Jun Moxie had already made it clear that his words were a dead end. The same goes for the same reason. You'll kill me if I don't give you the pills. I'll die if I give you the pills. So, why should I give them to you? Would I do something as stupid as giving money to the enemy? Am I being cheap? Ning Wuqing and Ma Jiangming were taking pleasure in the misfortune of the illusory ocean of blood at this moment. The efficacy of these pills is so miraculous. I've personally tried it. Our 2 families can get 40 pills each. But, the illusory ocean of blood only got 20. The illusory ocean of blood's strength will be far inferior to our 2 families in the future. This is tantamount to getting rid of a big enemy without shedding a drop of blood. The 2 of them were overjoyed as they thought of this. In fact, they even wanted to thank Jun Moxie in their hearts. However, this wasn't the time for them to laugh. Hu Yanzhao's entire body trembled in anger. He unwaveringly glared at Jun Moxie, and spoke up with resentment. Jun Moxie, you mustn't regret this. Jun Moxie snorted and said, what you're going to say next is, wait for the revenge of our illusory ocean of blood. He looked at Huyan Shao in a mocking manner, this young lord, I'm embarrassed to address you like this because of your age. But, I have no choice but to address you as young lord. Let me ask you something here. Huang Taiyang died at the hands of my Jun family. So, would your illusory ocean of blood let me off even if I were to sell you a divine pill for free? Will you? Huh? Hu Yanzhao was left speechless. A superior great master has died. So, how can we let you off so easily? Isn't this nonsense? How many superior great masters are there in the entire continent? The illusory ocean of blood won't have any loyal people in the future if we give up on revenge for a few pills. Jun Mocs snorted, things have come to this. So, there's nothing more to say. I've been waiting for your revenge since the day Huang Taiyang died. Now, you want me to not regret it? Is this joke funny? Chapter 521. Hu Yanzhao's complexion changed from green to red. Then, it changed from red to white. His ghastly white face revealed a boundless murderous intention. He roared in anger, and moved his hand towards Jun Moxie to grab him. Halfway through, his originally fair and smooth palms suddenly turned blood red in color, and they even emitted a black fishy smell. Blood sees withered bones palm. Ning Wuqing's eyes flashed as he said in a sinking voice. This sentence was obviously meant to remind Jun Moxie to be careful. Jun Moxie snorted. He was about to counter the attack with his palm. The art of unlocking heaven's fortune could break all the evil techniques in the world. The more evil a technique was, the more it could restrain it. Therefore, Jun Dashao didn't care about this young lord who was several levels higher than him. Jun Moxie was very confident that his palms would naturally restrain Hu Yanzhao's power. Hu Yanzhao would suffer a backlash if his palms were to meet Hu Yanzhao's palms. In fact, it would be a trivial matter if Hu Yanzhao were to be defeated on the spot. However, Jun Moxie might even force the poison into his heart if Hu Yanzhao was careless and didn't go all out. Suddenly, a bang sound was heard. Then, Hu Yanzhao's body crashed through the roof with a whooshing sound, and broke a big hole in the roof. He flew straight up, and a mouthful of blood sprinkled down from the sky like raindrops. The 4 experts of the illusory ocean of blood were shocked. They feared that Hu Yanzhao would get seriously injured. So, they hurriedly jumped out, and took care of their young lord. Mei Xueyan stood in front of Jun Moxie in a relaxed manner. She faintly said, Hu Yanzhao, your arrogance has its limits. You'll need your father, Hu Yanao Bo, to come in person if you want to behave atrociously. You don't have enough weight. Her voice wasn't loud, but it spread far and wide. Mei Xueyan had suddenly appeared a moment ago. She had grabbed Hu Yanzhao, and thrown him away. Her movements could be said to be extremely fast. In fact, almost no one on the scene had been able to see it clearly. Even someone as strong as Ning Wuqing and Ma Jiangming had only seen a white shadow flash in front of them, and Hu Yanzhao had been sent flying. They hadn't seen how Mei Xueyan had attacked. The two of them looked at each other in shock. This kind of speed had clearly exceeded the two's understanding. It was truly frightening. What they didn't know was that a few days ago, although Mei Xueyan's speed was also at an extremely fast level, much faster than the two of them, it wasn't at such a shocking level. But now that he had taken the vitality linkage pill, his speed had tripled. Now that he had suddenly made a move, it naturally shocked the 2 experts. In the distance, there was an extremely sullen howl, followed by the sound of clothes fluttering in the air. It gradually faded away. It was obvious that the people of the illusory ocean of blood had directly left. If it was anyone else, they wouldn't have the face to stay here. Even with all the water from the 5 lakes and 4 seas, it would be difficult to wash away the shame on my face today. May I dare to ask young lady's surname? Ning Wuqing looked deeply at Mei Xueyan, and asked in a solemn manner. My surname is Mei, Mei Xueyan replied indifferently. Jun Moxie had intended to stop her, but Mei Xueyan had already answered. Ma Jiangming and Ning Wuqing revealed a strange look in their eyes. It was obvious that the surname, Mei, had made their imaginations run wild. Ma Jiangming smiled sinisterly and said, Mei, this surname is very rare. In fact, there have only been 3 top-notch experts with the surname Mei in the last 1,000 years. But, I wonder which one of them is young lady's descendant. One of them is Mei Gaiying. His name shook the Jianghu 1,300 years ago. Later, he joined the Hermitage, and in the war for seizing the heavens 1,000 years ago, he perished together with Matsushita Kudai. The other one is the Tian Fa Forest's previous Saint King, Mei Chang Tian. And the third one is the Venerable Mei of the Tian Fa forest. Ning Wuqing's eyes were fixed on Mei Shuyan's face. A sword light seemed to shoot out from his eyes. Young Lady Mei's skills are extraordinary, and your knowledge is also extraordinary. Have you heard of these three people? I've never heard of them. Mei Shuyan's expression didn't change. She looked at Ning Wuqing indifferently. I don't know the meaning of your words. Are you trying to investigate my background? Ning Wuqing's sword-like eyes came into contact with Mei Shuyan's indifferent eyes, and he suddenly felt his heart stagnate. It was as if the tip of the sword had been broken, and was stabbing him instead. He couldn't help but take a step back, and his pupils shrank as he said, I was just joking. Young lady is magnanimous, please don't blame me. Mei Shuyan nodded and walked out with Jun Moxie. Ning Wuqing's eyes flashed. He suddenly took a step forward and said in a deep voice, Young Master Jun, you and your wife are powerful enough to roam the world unhindered. There's no need for this old man to say so much. But, there's one thing that you and your wife need to pay attention to. Jun Moxie stopped and said, Senior, please speak. With your Xian skills, I believe that you and your wife can roam the world. But, you must be careful if you meet someone. Ning Wuqing's long beard fluttered even though there was no wind. May I ask who that person is? I really didn't know that there's such an ability in this world. Jun Moxie smiled faintly. He was full of confidence. That person is the Venerable Mei of the Tian Fa forest. Ning Wuqing's eyes shone as he looked at the two's backs. Venerable Mei is the Beast King of Tian Fa. He's not of our race, and his heart is definitely different. He's ruthless and cruel, and devoid of conscience. In those days, he did all kinds of evil. But, his Xian skills are extraordinarily high, and no one can control him. Back then, this old man had once joined hands with 9 great experts to stop him. Unfortunately, he still managed to escape without a trace. The only consolation was that this old man had once heavily stabbed Venerable Mei's body with my sword. But, the price was that this old man was kicked in the chest by him. That injury took me 30 years to recover. These past few years, there's no news of him. I heard that he appeared in Tian Fa some time ago, stirring up trouble, and did not hesitate to use his great power to bully and humiliate the great masters of this generation. I heard that young Master Jun also participated in this. You must be careful. You must know that if this kind of divine pill is obtained by a crazy person like Venerable Mei, it will definitely have a great impact on this peaceful world. The calamity it will cause may not be less than that of the strange races. Jun Moxie's entire body trembled, and he said with lingering fear, so there's actually such a strong expert. I will definitely be extra careful, and not let the bad guys have their way. Many thanks for Senior Ning's guidance. The two did not speak again, and slowly walked out. Ning Wuqing, Ma Jiangming, and the rest looked at the two's backs, not saying anything. When the two's figures turned a corner and disappeared, Ma Jiangming's lips moved, and he sent a voice transmission to Ning Wuqing. Old Demon Ning, what do you think? Ning Wuqing shook his head in a somewhat perplexed manner. His lean face was full of doubt as he replied, I'm not sure. I can't be sure. Ma Jiangming made an oh sound. Then, he said in a meaningful manner, it's a pity that we can be sure if Yun Bichen was here. Ning Wuqing slowly shook his head, and slowly paced 2 steps. Then, he sent a voice transmission to Ma Jiangming, there are many doubtful points in the Battle of Tian Fa that day. The Xian beasts of Tian Fa had an ambiguous stance. Moreover, they didn't attack the people of the Jun family. Moreover, a mysterious expert has appeared in the Jun family. And, this Miss Mei's Xian cultivation is obviously above ours. But, I've never heard of her. Bear King and Tiger King had come to Tianxiang to deliver medicine. Old Ma, what do you think? However, that black-clothed man who appeared in Tian Fa appeared at the same time as Venerable Mei. So, it's obvious that they are not the same person, Ma Jiangming's gloomy face exposed an uncertain expression. But, who else has the ability to command millions of Xian beasts apart from the beast kings of Tianfa? It's true that your city lord and our palace lord have great achievements. But, can they command the Xian beasts? Ning Wuqing heaved a sigh of relief. Then, he muttered to himself, even if they are not the same person, they must be related. What do you mean? Ma Jiangming looked at Ning Wuqing in a somewhat vigilant manner. The three holy lands have been the leaders of the continent for 10,000 years. Brother Ma, what do you think of the strength of the three holy lands? Ning Wuqing smiled. Ma Jiangming snorted and said, I don't dare to say anything else. But, the strength of my great golden city has far surpassed that of our ancestors. Then, in your opinion, what are our chances of victory in this war for seizing the heavens? Ning Wuqing narrowed his eyes, and shot out two sharp cold lights. We will certainly win. This has already been confirmed without a doubt. If the progress of the three holy lands is equal, then even if only one of them takes action, it will still be easy. Ma Jiangming said in a gloomy manner. But, his eyes flickered with arrogance, I don't mean to look down on those strange races. But, just based on their strange appearances. Brother Ning, even if they are very strong, how strong can they be? That's right. How can our 500 years of accumulation be a small matter? Ning Wuqing's expression also turned gloomy. In that case, why do we still need the Tianfa forest? Ma Jiangming seemed to be taken aback. Brother Ning? You mean? Even if the Xian beasts of Tianfa can transform into human form, does that mean that their essence has also changed? We are dignified men of the human world. Do we still need to rely on a group of wild beasts to resist the invasion of foreign invaders? Ning Wuqing snorted. Then, he suddenly said bitterly, for 10,000 years, we have always used Tianfa in every battle. But, who would have thought that relying on the strength of beasts is the greatest humiliation of the human race? Could it be that we can't win without relying on these wild beasts? But, our city lord still holds the Xian beasts of Tianfa in high esteem. Ma Jiangming thought for a while and said seriously. But, our palace lord has already decided on a grand plan to get rid of Tianfa. Ning Wuqing's expression was cold as he transmitted his voice. If we can make all the beast kings of Tianfa into our beast pets, doesn't that mean we can also go into battle? And, it will definitely be a great help to us. Ma Jiangming was taken aback and asked in surprise, Brother Ning? Is this the palace lord's intention? That's right. Ning Wuqing nodded and suddenly asked. Old Ma, you've seen Yunbi Chen before. In your opinion, this #1 expert of the mortal world, the leader of the 8 great masters. How strong is he? His strength, I believe. I believe that he is definitely not below you or me. Ma Jiangming first used an uncertain believe. But then, he felt that it was not accurate, so he changed his tone to one of certainty. However, this person's temperament has always been aloof. He only likes to travel around and have no interest in the struggles of the world. But, his personal strength has already reached the realm of saints. If he has that beast pet of his, then even we will lose without a doubt. Chapter 522. Ma Jiangming was startled. Then, he suddenly slapped his thigh and exclaimed, why didn't I think of that? Not bad, not bad. That's right. The two of them had been conversing in secret. But now, he was so excited that he had actually shouted out loud. This had attracted everyone's attention. Silence. Ning Wuqing's stern voice rang out. Now, you should be able to imagine the benefits of having a pet beast, right? Yunbi Chen is a mere junior. But, after having a pet beast, his strength has increased by leaps and bounds. In fact, he has even surpassed us. This is the biggest benefit. That's right. At our level, it is indeed difficult to find a worthy opponent. So, it is as difficult as ascending to the heavens if we want to reach the next level. But, if we have a pet beast of comparable strength, it will be a completely different story. Even if it is a little weaker, it will be enough to compare with us every day and improve together. Not only will it be able to break through quickly, but it will also be able to quickly overcome bottlenecks. At that time, it will not only be a matter of doubling our strength. The more Ma Jiangming spoke, the more excited he became. So, we might as well put aside our personal grudges for now. Let's deal with the shame of Tianfa first. That way, we will have a much higher chance of winning in the war for seizing the heavens. You must know that bringing a pet beast into battle is not counted in the number of participants. Ning Wuqing smiled sinisterly and said, "Our palace lord has this intention." This time, the reason why this old man personally came here is because of this matter. The first benefit is that after we get rid of Tianfa, only our 3 holy lands will be left. At that time, all the glory will be ours. Moreover, we will be able to wash away the shame of our ancestors who used the strength of beasts to protect the continent for the past 10,000 years. The second benefit is that we will be able to obtain a strong pet beast, and our own strength will also greatly improve. Ma Jiangming touched his chin and smiled. His eyes were full of longing. Even if we don't do well, we will still be able to obtain a Xian Dan A. That is a good thing. There is also a third benefit. Ning Wuqing clasped his hands behind his back and said, "The Jun family and Tianfa must have a great relationship. That mysterious alchemist, Do you understand? This is called, pull one hair and the whole body moves." After saying that, he let out a long sigh. It's a pity for Jun Moxie. That young man's way of doing things is to my liking. Today, I have the intention of appreciating talent, but for the sake of the common people and the future, I have no choice but to do so. It's a sacrifice, so be it. If that's the case, wouldn't I be able to produce an endless supply of godly pills in the future? Ma Jiangming had just taken a godly pill, and his mind was currently at its peak. Humph. That's why I said that you have no foresight. Is this the only type of divine pill you have? Ning Wuqing had a profound look in his eyes as he slowly said, "As far as I know, the aristocratic hall has already auctioned 3 kinds of miraculous pills. Moreover, old Ma, if you can only refine these 3 kinds of pills, won't you leave one behind? Therefore, there would definitely be a 4th or even a 5th. Furthermore, the ones that hadn't been revealed yet, the more precious they were. Even if it's immortality, it's not impossible." Ma Jiangming's body trembled. His deathly pale face slowly turned red, and it took a long time for it to recede. His eyes emitted an extremely greedy light. "Old Ning, there's no need to say anything. I'll go back and report this matter to the city lord. I'll strive to make it happen. The cucumber will be cold by the time you get back. Our empress has already sent a letter to your city lord. This matter is still being discussed. But, the results will probably be out by the time you get back." Ning Wuqing's eyes lit up, but, the breakthrough point lies with the Jun family no matter what. Or, it should be said that it lies with that woman surnamed Mei. Moreover, I reckon that this woman is the strongest link in the Jun family. Everything else will fall into place as long as we can break through from here. That's right. Ma Jiangming nodded heavily. Moreover, I'm almost certain that this woman is a Xian beast in human form. Ning Wuqing's complexion turned gloomy as he said in a heavy tone, "Brother Ma, this woman doesn't look more than 20 years old from her appearance. How can she have such a high Xian technique if she isn't a Xian beast in human form? Even you and I aren't a match for her. You must know that there are miraculous medicines in this world that can increase one's Xian techniques. However, there are certain conditions for their usage. It's impossible to raise one's Xian cultivation to Tian Xian, or even Shin Xian, but there's always a chance. But, have you ever seen anyone raise their cultivation to the great master level? Moreover, where would you find so many heavenly treasures? That's right. The strength of the great master level and above is tempered over a long period of time. How could it be possible? Ma Jiangming's eyes also lit up. Even if there are heavenly treasures that can increase one's cultivation by 10,000 years, it's impossible to increase one's experience at the same time. Brother Ning's words make sense. Only a Xian beast in human form would have this possibility. Therefore, I boldly conclude that this woman is a Xian beast. Moreover, it's very likely that she is Venerable Mei himself. Ning Wuqing clenched his teeth and finally transmitted his voice to Ma Jiangming. What? Impossible. Ma Jiangming opened his eyes wide. Venerable Mei is a man. This is a well-known fact. That's not necessarily true. Ning Wuqing snorted. No one has ever seen Venerable Mei's true appearance ever since he made his debut. So, it's very difficult to guess whether he's a man or a woman. Even the top 10 experts weren't able to force him to reveal his true form. However, he may not be a man. In fact, I even hope that they're the same person. Why do you say that? Ma Jiangming was somewhat surprised. That Venerable Mei's strength isn't inferior to the palace lords. In fact, the beast kings under his command have been progressing very slowly in recent years. In fact, none of them have been able to surpass the great master level. However, this Mei girl's strength is unfathomable. In fact, she's at least stronger than you and me. So, we'll have to reevaluate the strength of the Tian Fa lineage if she's not Venerable Mei himself. And, I'm afraid that the grand plan we've drawn up will have some changes. Ma Jiangming remained silent as he pondered. Moreover, this is a very good opportunity. He may have escaped from the last ambush, but we still managed to inflict serious injuries on him. He may not be able to recover even after many years. At the very least, he's almost as strong as he was when he was at his peak. So, he won't be able to recover without years of recuperation. Therefore, his Xian cultivation may not be comparable to the palace lords. But, we can't be careless. Therefore, we must be extremely cautious if we're going to act this time. We must make sure that nothing goes wrong. Moreover, the news must be strictly sealed. We mustn't beat the grass and alert the enemy. The top 10 experts didn't manage to take his life last time. So, we must dispatch at least 30 experts this time. Ning Wuqing took a deep breath, 10 experts from each of the 3 holy lands. 30 experts above the great master level must be killed in one strike. We must leave no room for luck. That's right. The illusory ocean of blood has also become enemies with them this time. So, I'm sure that the illusory ocean of blood will be very proactive if we act. Ma Jiangming laughed in a strange manner. Old Ning, we've been fighting for 200 years. I didn't think that we'd have to cooperate in the end. It won't be too late for us to continue our fight after this matter is over. Ning Wuqing Lenglang said, or, we can set our goal at the war for seizing the heavens. Whoever kills the most strange races will be the winner. What do you think? That's a wonderful plan. Ma Jiangming laughed heartily. The afternoon auction is about to begin. Let's go and get the other pill first. Ning Wuqing smiled. His face was calm as he walked out. His every movement was as smooth as the floating clouds and flowing water. Yes, I'll go to the Tianxiang city to meet someone after this matter is over. Ma Jiangming nodded and followed him out. Who? Ning Wuqing seemed very interested as he asked. Well, it's Lei Wubei's disciple. He'll be recommended to the Great Golden City as a candidate to watch the next war for seizing the heavens. This old man will personally train him if he's suitable. Then, I'll recommend him to the lord of the city. Ma Jiangming's voice was still gloomy as he sighed. The strange races can't be completely annihilated. Our people can't cross the pillar of heaven's mountains. The decisive battle that happens once every 500 years is very difficult to predict. Our generation may win. But, Who knows what will happen in the next 500 years? Ning Wuqing was silent for a moment. Then, he said, we'll do our best and leave the rest to the heavens. Who in this world can be so thorough? As long as we do our best, it's fine. As for the future generations, we'll leave it to the heavens. Has Lei Wubei joined your great golden city? No. But, Lei Wubei will join soon. He has a deep relationship with the golden city. So, he won't be too far away. Ma Jiangming laughed in a strange manner. Damn it. I've become a hero by following you, Ning Wuqing snorted. He walked out first, and didn't speak again. They walked out of the hall, and made 2 turns. Jun Moxie's calm face sank after he confirmed that he had lost sight of the people behind him. Mei Shuyan's elegant face had turned pale at this moment. It was hard to tell what she was thinking. Jun Moxie pulled her tightly. They turned a few more times, and arrived at Tang Yuan's room. Then, he stretched out his hand, and pressed on a certain part of the wall. A creaking sound was heard, and an entrance suddenly appeared on the wall. The door opened, and a large amount of light shot out. The luminous pearls inside lit up one by one like neon lights. It was a very magical scene. Mei Shuyan didn't understand what was going on. She wasn't in the mood to appreciate this magical scene. She only knew that she was following Jun Moxie all the way. At the same time they entered, the door to the secret chamber quietly closed. Jun Moxie's complexion turned dark and bright under the illumination of the luminous pearls. He looked extremely unsightly. They're suspecting you. Jun Moxie's complexion was very unsightly. In fact, it seemed as if it had turned green. Yes. Huh. Mei Shuyan was startled when she heard this. What are they suspecting? Chapter 523. Doubt? Convinced? Ha, they have always been suspicious. What's so strange about that? I really don't know why they doubt me, and what do they know about me? Mei Shuyan faintly lowered her eyelids. Doubt? Convinced? Ha, they have always been suspicious. What's so strange about that? I really don't know why they doubt me, and what do they know about me? Mei Shuyan faintly lowered her eyelids. There are no absolutes in this world. Anything is no longer mysterious once there are clues. You really shouldn't have rushed to make a move today. I could have handled it. In fact, it might have been better if I had handled it myself. You shouldn't have even made a move during the Battle of Auras. Jun Moxie sighed. If you had made a move, they would have locked onto you. And, the Jun family is still young and inexperienced. So, how can they withstand the storms of the 3 holy lands? Mei Shuyan faintly said. Jun Moxie had already guessed it. But hearing her say it now, he couldn't help but feel touched. He softened his voice and said, that's not necessarily the case. I will naturally restrain the effects of my own martial arts. At most, it will be a draw. However, when you make a move, you will bear all the danger on your own body. You are so young, but you have such an imposing aura. With one palm, Shen Xian, a level 3 expert, immediately ran away. If you were a human, there would be no explanation. The only explanation is Tian Fa. But in Tian Fa, there are not many people with such strength. Venerable Mei is the most suspicious one. Mei Shuyan smiled sweetly and said, don't you have any doubts? No, I have never doubted. Jun Moxie snorted and said, because I have already confirmed it. What is there to doubt? What did you confirm? Mei Shuyan's eyes widened. Jun Moxie remained silent for a while. He didn't speak for a long time. Then, he suddenly turned around like a whirlwind. His pair of sword-like eyes glared at Jun Moxie. Venerable Mei, Master Mei, how long do you plan to hide this from me? But how did you know I? Mei Shuyan's brain short-circuited as she asked with her eyes wide open. What's so hard to guess? I've known since the time you spanked me outside the city. June Moxie snorted, his expression still ugly. I, June Moxie, have never been spanked by anyone in my entire life. Not to mention, it was twice so ruthlessly. His face was swollen. This feeling was exactly the same for both times. Moreover, both of you have used the heaven and earth cage. Can that thing be used by just anyone? If I still don't know, then I'm really stupid. The most important thing is, even though you've restored your female body and used the fragrance of rouge, your body's fragrance can't be covered. Even though it's very faint, it's enough. June Moxie said leisurely, I forgot to tell you this. Actually, I'm very sensitive to smell. Especially enemies, or women. Since you know, why are you still pretending? Mei Shuyan stared at him. Gradually, a layer of anger appeared on her face. Are you kidding me? Are you very happy? Kidding you? Happy? Are you that fun? June Moxie snorted. I'm not as boring as you think. He walked up step by step until he was very close to Mei Shuyan. Both of them could feel each other's breath. June Moxie stared at her and said in a low voice, You have to believe me. Looking at June Moxie's fiery eyes and feeling his warm breath on her face, Mei Shuyan actually felt a little flustered. Every time this kind of mentality arose, she would feel strange. She thought about how she had the all-seeing divine skill and the cultivation of a superior supreme. How could she be afraid of a small Tianxian peak? Why would she be afraid of a human, and it was the kind of fear that came from her bones? How could it be? Finally, she couldn't help but take 2 steps back. Her face was flushed. She pretended to be calm and arrogant as she braced herself and said, I'll believe you. Why are you showing such a face? Are you trying to scare me? Now, I'm not going to talk to you about the disguise. Now, let me finish what I have to say. June Moxie was angry and amused at the same time. They ganged up on you before, right? Did he injure you severely before? Mei Shuyan bit her lips and tilted her head to one side. She nodded lightly. This silly girl. June Moxie was instantly infuriated. Then why are you still hoping that they will work together with you to deal with the war for seizing the heavens? You're about to lose your life, and you're still thinking about this. Working together with the enemy who wants to kill you? Do you not have a brain? Or is there mold in your brain? What do you want me to say about you? June Moxie was furious. The more he spoke, the angrier he got. Regardless of what he could or could not say, he spilled everything out. How they want to treat me is an internal matter of the continent. But once it involves the war for seizing the heavens, it concerns the future of the continent. Although I, Mei Shuyan, am a Xian beast, I will not disregard the lives of millions of people because of personal grudges. Mei Shuyan sighed and said, even if I'm the only one in the world who has such intentions, I've already tried my best. I only hope that I have a clear conscience. But they might not. June Moxie laughed angrily. Asking a tiger for its skin, that's really stupid. June Moxie really wanted to say, what does the lives of the world have to do with you? But thinking that it might cause a huge commotion, he decided not to say it out loud. Everyone has a bottom line, and I will naturally not sit and wait for death. Mei Shuyan smiled and raised her head, looking at June Moxie gently. Don't worry. Furthermore, this is the responsibility that the Saint King has given me. I have to take it. But the problem is that I'm not at ease. How can I be at ease? June Moxie furrowed his brows. Ning Wuqing's last words are full of suspicion. This kind of person, once they start suspecting, they will definitely take action. And it will definitely be a big action. The first time they sent out their top 10 experts, they did not manage to stop you. This time, their lineup will definitely be even bigger. If they, the consequences will be dire. June Moxie took 2 steps and snorted. If it were me, I would also take action. With my strength, it won't be that easy for them to kill me. Mei Shuyan snorted coldly. If that's the case, I definitely won't mind going on a killing spree. Right now, the safest place for you is your base camp, Tianfa Forest. June Moxie took 2 steps and said solemnly. Once this matter is over, return to Tianfa immediately. I will make use of the time to speed up the refinement of the divine pills. Once all the pills are refined, immediately bring them back to increase Tianfa's strength. Only then will you have the capability to fight. We'll talk about it when the time comes. Mei Shuyan sighed softly and said in her heart, You fool, how can I leave at this time? What will you do if I leave? The auction in the afternoon was even livelier and more lively. But there were no shocking scenes. Everything was the same as in the morning. Apart from the liveliness, the speed of the auction was much faster. The only implication was that when the elusive world of immortals and the great golden city said that they wanted an extra portion, it still caused an instant silence. However, not many people felt that it was unfair. In this world where the fist was bigger, the 2 holy lands were already giving face by not buying a few more portions. In fact, it could even be said that they only wanted 1 more portion, which was already out of the expectations of the big families that were participating in the auction. There were a total of 50 portions of medicinal pills. The big families had originally estimated that the 3 holy lands would take at least 10 portions. Now that they had taken 5 portions, it was already a pleasant surprise for the big families. June Moxie naturally did not stand on ceremony. He directly sold the 2 additional portions at the highest price of 1.4 million taels of gold. Then, he continued the auction. It was obvious that although Hermitage and Supreme Golden City did not care about such worldly things like gold and silver, the sky-high price of 1.4 million taels of gold still made them feel a lot of pain. Even Ning Wuqing's face twitched when the transaction was completed. However, June Moxie did not care at all. To him, the existence of the so-called 3 holy lands was basically his hidden enemy. Not for anything else, but once they could determine the greatest value of these medicinal pills, they would definitely become his enemy. There would be no room for negotiation, and no need for a reason. Therefore, from the moment they arrived, June Moxie already had the thought that he could not coexist with them. Because he would never sacrifice his freedom to become an alchemist from the 3 holy lands, however, the 3 holy lands were determined to get their hands on this mysterious alchemist. It could be seen from the fact that the 3 holy lands had sent people to participate in this auction at the same time. In the past 1,000 years, the 3 holy lands had never appeared for the so-called worldly affairs. As long as they appeared, it meant that they were determined. Therefore, June Moxie did not need to consider their attitude at all. He could think whatever he wanted and do whatever he wanted. Could it be that you want to eat my bird? Are the 3 holy lands that powerful? How powerful can you be? If you are really that powerful, why don't you cross over and show me? You don't have that ability, right? Since I am the only transmigrator in this world, then I am the main character. Fully deserving of being the main character. June Moxie twitched his mouth, raised the hammer and continued to control the atmosphere. He was busy until the sky turned dark. All 50 sets of medicinal pills were finally auctioned off. The result of this auction and the amount of gold that was auctioned off made June Dashao's hair stand on end. 68 million taels. That was 3,400 tons. Gold. Oh my god. June Moxie hadn't panicked when he'd raised the hammer. He'd played it down with a calm demeanor. However, June Moxie's majestic body couldn't help but sway when he heard the final result. In fact, he had almost fainted from the shock. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.